Hello, everyone, and welcome to From the Ground Up. I guess it's not Port City Pythons podcast yet, but I think we're going to change it to Port City Pythons. At least I'm pretty sure at this point. But it is still December 23rd. But thank you guys so much for being here. Happy holidays. Whatever you celebrate, I'm just glad that you are in our ears right now, and hopefully you can have a good couple of hours because we have my friends, Riley Jimison and Andy Rea from the Reptile Room Podcast. How are you guys doing?
Doing great, man. How are you? It's good to be on.
Yeah, of course. So, Riley,
well.
obviously everyone knows you, man.
Yeah.
But, Andy, how did you get into reptiles?
Yeah, so I started when I was pretty young. I'm trying to get used to the whole format here. So... but yeah, I started pretty young. I was actually herping over close to my house, pretty much just down by a little creek. Anything I can find, I was just always trying to catch what I can and keep what I can. My mom didn't normally let me keep snakes or anything like that, but I could keep lizards. So for me, that was probably my primary focus as a kid, just trying to catch lizards, and then at that point, trying to establish them in my backyard. My very first really big enclosure was actually like a paludarium in a big old 75-gallon tank in my room, and it was filled with fence lizards. And
so can we explain that? Because I only found out what a paludarium was like a month ago, I swear.
Yeah.
Can you explain exactly what that is?
Yeah, it was so this was okay, how old? I'm trying to do math right now, and I'm not half of a beer in. That's pretty bad. So I was 12 at the time, 13 at the time, and I built my first bioactive. There was no internet then, really, that I could rely on. But basically, a paludarium is where it's going to have a significant amount of that enclosure that's dedicated to water. So what I did is I set it up as if it was going to be a little turtle pond. So it had a filter, a little bit of a heater. I kept it pretty close to ambient temperatures there anyway. I went out and I tested the temperature of the water in that creek. And so I tried to set it up so that it was basically just a living vivarium or a duplicate of what the creek was down the street from me. So put in guppies and whatever I can find out there. And that I snuck in a little garter snake in there. So my mom didn't know. She stayed away from that. But in any case, yeah. So that's how I got started. Kept my first snake after my parents got divorced, and my dad let me get a snake, and kind of never stopped since then. And one way or another, I've had a snake in my possession for like 30 years, man.
Wow. So what was the first species that really caught your eye that you kept in any numbers?
Oh, I would probably say Rosy Boas. In terms of numbers, I would say probably Rosy Boas. I was hitting the reptile show scene pretty early on and meeting some pretty cool guys then. Looking back, I didn't really keep track of localities the way that I do now. Right now, I keep locality Rosy Boas. I've had some crosses in the past. I've moved most of those. I think I still have one or two that are in my collection now. But then I did have a couple ball pythons. I had I had a pair of berms. I kind of had a whole bunch of different things. I'd have corn snakes and king snakes and gopher snakes and stuff like that. So I never really had a bunch of just one species when I was younger. It was a pretty eclectic collection even from a young age, and it's the same now.
And now Rosy Boas, in the beginning you weren't really keeping track, but aren't they kind of crazy about localities?
Oh yeah. I mean, not everybody. I mean, there's actually, there's a pretty big push for morphs. I think it's.
And do morph guys not really care as much of where the locality?
No, the morph guys don't, not as much. I mean, they're going to be they're going after some of the rarer combinations of stuff, but I would say it's definitely leaning heavier towards the locality guys. The majority of Rosy Boa aficionados want the locality and they want the integrity of those locales kept pure. And even if they see something that doesn't typically look like a locality, even just recently I was on a Facebook group and I hadn't seen a response to a picture that I had posted, and like somebody commented basically that, oh yeah, that's a cross, you know, and even though it was sold to me by somebody that's very highly regarded in the hobby, that is a purist at heart and has been for as long as I can remember. So that wasn't even a jab at me. That was like a jab at like one of the old school, and he's young. I say old school, but that's just one of those things. I mean, they're so naturally variable, even in the wild, you know. So you're going to have different looks in different localities, and you're going to have different variations, different lines over the years as people have, you know, done some line breeding for, certain traits. And so, yeah, it's funny to see locality guys kind of harp on other guys and see it go back and forth. It can get a little tense sometimes. Yeah.
And to call it just as far as localities go, and I mean, to say by phenotype that something is a hybrid or crossed out or anything, and that goes for a lot of species, like, come on, man.
Yeah.
Know.
I mean, the Rosy Boas have been in the hobby for so long, and there have been so many different breeders that are going for a certain phenotype, you know, and a certain look that doesn't take very many generations to. I think you turned your light off, Riley.
I don't trust Riley. Yeah. He's like doing videos and
what
stuff.
Is he doing?
I've been trying not to say anything.
I'm like, hold on a second. I was like,
I got this.
Like, what is he trying to do right now?
Is that his timer for his? Do all your lights run on a timer or something? Or what you got going on, Riley?
Ah, shit.
Because I guess for you guys, it's still a reasonable time where it may be a timer as far as going off for the night.
My everything's cycled down at 5 o'clock for me. So right now that the lights are
power
on,
strip.
Boo! Who invited him? Why did you invite him, man? All right, round 2. Cheers, guys.
All right.
Sorry. No one look at me. Shame.
We already shamed the shit out of you before we even started recording. So
I think everyone's going to give you a pass, considering I'm the one who just blundered with the lights. So you're good. Yeah. Gotcha, buddy. I did it for you.
I can already tell this is going to be one of those like podcasts that our friends will listen to and really enjoy, but other people will probably be like,
they're going to be like,
guys are just all over the place.
Yeah.
So.
Those are the funnest ones.
Yes.
So Andy, about these Rosy Boas, when did you first breed them?
All right.
What year? Do you know for?
So you know what? Yeah. I actually, for the first time, only did it in 2016. Prior to that, I had just kept them. Never really put a lot of effort into breeding them. And I took a pretty big break from keeping in general. I mean, I had a couple snakes, but it wasn't to the extent that I have now. So when I first had Ray, looks like going before he got all
So, question from the chat. Well, maybe not a question, maybe more of a statement. Palmetto Coast Exotics. Ray looks like Gollum before he got all meth. Y.
Nice.
Methy.
How do I see this chat?
Yeah, I can't.
You guys are going to be distracted, dude.
Oh, okay.
Okay. That's true.
Well, Riley's already doing stories and turning off lights, so.
Turning lights off, and we're ready.
So where are you now as far as have you moved on from Rosies?
No, Rosies are still going to, I'm brumating right now. Quite a bit of them. So for this upcoming season, it'll be Bay of LA's, Magdalena Plains. I have 1.4 of a locality that I'm not going to mention. It's kind of a project that's connecting with somebody else. We're hoping that if it goes, it'll be the first ones that I know of in the United States. And then Harkahalas, I do have some morphs, so I do have some whitewater albinos, and so there's a little bit of where did the albino come from? I'm not 100% certain that it's the true whitewater. I'm thinking there might be a little bit of a mix there. So trying to think, what else do I have going? I have some Mojaves that are going to go. Some
Wait, can I ask you random Rosy Boa questions?
Yeah, go for it.
Limburg albino.
What's up?
Is Limburg albino, is that just a lineage, or is that like it's not compatible with other forms of albino, or both?
No, so
I feel like I gotta start getting Riley involved somehow.
I'm just laughing at it because it's going awry and I'm not even doing it.
Oh, Justin. I might unfriend him tonight.
Well, to be fair, I didn't put up the next comment, which I'm kidding. Ray is one of the best dudes around, is what he said. So.
Yeah, no, dude, he's good. He's good, man. He's awesome. So, now Limburg so Limburg found one of the original coastal albinos in the wild. I want to say, oh man, this was probably, if I'm remembering my history right, it was like early 80s. And then from there, that gene, he created a bunch of hets, and then from there, a very isolated group of keepers, good friends with Randy, and that at that point started expanding on that project. But he definitely took it to the next level and really cleaned up that coastal pattern. So the coastal Rosies will have a lot of speckling in between the stripes. And so with those Limburg albinos, if you look at them, they're beautiful, really clean typically. And you're still going to get some coastal speckling in there, but that line specifically, he worked on it for so long. And so it's just been one of those things where it's like it's tipping the cap to one of the OGs in the Rosy world. He really cleaned it. He created a beautiful line.
Yeah, I saw him I've seen him before, but I've only seen him in pictures, and I saw him at the White Plains show, and I was like, damn. Because, everyone has perfect lighting, and everything looks contrasty, and all the albinos look amazing in the pictures on fauna and everything. But that animal in person was just outrageous.
I'm like looking at one of my holdback babies right now. I'm like, maybe I should pull something out.
Are they as nifty as everyone says they are?
Yeah, they can be.
Yeah.
Shut up, Riley.
They're the best first pet snake.
You know what? I actually love them for. Man, I get frowned on for it, but I really do think that they can be a great pet if they're established well early on. I try to go into my tubs. Even if I've got 30 or 40 babies, I'm going in there with my hands and trying to get them basically a little desensitized to getting in there. They love food though. And that's for an early keeper, is to understand it's a little snake. Are they going to bite you sometimes? Yeah, they might. Are they going to hold on a little longer than some other species? Yeah, probably. But I love that though, so, and I do say that to most of my customers, that I try to let them know, like, hey, look, you're getting into an animal that loves to eat. If you keep it fed and then you can work with it, you might have an animal that's going to be amazing. I have some Rosies that have never bit me, have never struck or anything. And then I have other ones that it doesn't matter. They're just always going to be biters, and then sometimes they just randomly decide they want to take you out. And, I don't know. I'm just used to it though. So I kind of I don't see it as a negative thing.
So it seems like often, some snakes that may be, a little food aggressive, when you get them out or you get them on a hook, they're usually good. And there's those other species that you can just never trust. Do Rosies fall into the latter category?
I would say that more often than not, Rosies will probably, but they have a certain behavior, and this is something that you can teach new keepers, is that they will typically give you a warning before they end up doing something, and they'll start digging their nose, the tip of their heads, kind of they'll look like they're going to dig into you for a second. The best thing to do is then just take them off, and then they're not going to do that. But other times they're they're just going to go.
It's like a woma.
Yeah, I've never kept womas, but the comparison, I've held plenty of womas, and I've been bitten by a woma a couple times.
Well, I'd rather one the size of a Rosy boa than a woma, to be honest.
See, there you go. Yeah, I'm trying to think. When was the last time I got bit by a Rosy?
Well, I was hoping you were going to take that baby out right now, and
oh yeah, you want me to take it out?
Yeah, if you can.
Yeah, hold on.
Hopefully, he doesn't get bit right in meow.
We'll hear it if he does.
Yeah.
I got to work with Rosy's back in Santa Barbara at the zoo for a few years, so that was my intro to them. They're cool snakes.
Is that like a very common, as far since they're a native species? I mean, is that going to be a very common display for you guys?
Actually, native species require permits in California in order to display any native species. You have to have a permit, and then to breed them, you have to have a captive bred wildlife permit. So, ironically enough, you can go field collect a lot of our natives with a fishing license, but otherwise, for exhibiting purposes, there's a separate permit. Dude, that's nice, Andy.
I was trying to make this work, but I clearly don't know how to make you big.
That looks
sweet. I was about to say something so incredibly inappropriate for your podcast.
Hey,
Oh, I finally did it.
There you go. There you go. Let me see if I can. So this is a whitewater albino, and from everything that I have been able to research on the adults that I have is that they're supposed to be pure, but there's a little bit of question marks, and so I call them what I receive my adults as, which is whitewater albinos. It's supposed to be a pure locality, and this is a holdback.
Is that is Lindbergh technically pure locality as well?
No.
Whitewater. So is that the only pure locality albino?
No, actually there's let's see. I'm trying to think how many others. There's the Harkahalas, which is more like a T positive albino. You guys good? I haven't been bit yet, by the way.
Yeah.
And that animal didn't look like it had red eyes. Does it have red eyes like a true albino, or is it like a? Because there's so many incolubrids, it's weird. We'll have some albinos that aren't true, or amelanistic that aren't true amelanistic.
I'm trying to see if I can get you. I think the whitewater is a form of T positive. I don't know. I don't think the definition of. Can you guys see that?
Does it have like a dark red pupil?
Yeah, it looks like the pupil's red.
Almost like we would see in like our ultra milk corn snakes.
Yeah.
So anyway. Yeah, I got mom and dad over there too.
I forgot there's people that just listen on the audio, and we're just like totally not even acknowledging them. But yeah, you could see Andy's Rosy boa if you go check out YouTube.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good way to get everybody to get onto the video side of it.
There you go.
Yeah. But sometimes people, they consume both.
What are you trying to say, Riley?
I said sometimes people consume both. Sorry, I was looking at
a good observation,
dude. Anyway,
my mind went elsewhere.
So what's your experience with Rosy boas, Riley?
I'd say I got bit half of the time working with a couple of them at the zoo. I have no experience with any of the localities or morphs or anything. The only ones I ever worked with were like, classic wild type coastal Rosies, I would assume. that was my introduction to them. And then through meeting various people in the hobby who had an interest, I sort of, caught wind of some of the various avenues that people keep. It's really ironic. It's very similar to carpet pythons in the way there's localities, there's pure stuff, there's questionable stuff that's known to at least be questionably pure, there's stuff that's known as pure, and I see a lot of parallels with Morelia. So, but they're small and they're striped and they're really awesome snakes. So,
and they're not in Australia behind all these laws. So if you need a true locality, maybe you could figure it out one day.
Yeah, that is pretty true. They're like the Southwest United States version of Australia's Antaresia.
And it's just weird that they're a boa. It just doesn't make sense.
Agree.
Yeah,
but
they're cool.
It's just a really, awesome, really unique animal.
Yeah, they captured my heart early on. Yep, they are.
They're cool snakes.
And they have such an incredible range. And I mean, you literally have, a short couple mile valley in between two different mountain ranges, and you're going to have two entirely looking different boas, same species, just different kinds of rocks, different environment. One might be a little bit higher elevation than the other mountain range that's just across the valley. And just the phenotypes, just even within the localities, are just so incredibly variable. And I think that that's what really captures the imagination of a lot of keepers, is just being able to see from, let's say, mom and dad look exactly the same, your babies might be completely different. And there's just no way of knowing. So I'm crossing my fingers for little horns. And
are they, I don't remember what I was just about to say. So Riley, how did you and how did you and Andy meet? Obviously,
it's funny because we talked about this.
I think
earlier.
It was beer.
We literally just talked about this earlier.
Yeah, 20 minutes ago. Shit.
Wait, we did?
I mean, shoot.
Oh,
my bad. Andy and I met a couple of years. Actually, dude, how many years has it been now? 5 years?
4 or 5, at least 4 or 5, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, because we knew each other when Carpet Fest started, the Southwest chapter, and I was still living.
I think we met online before the first one. Yeah, we met before the first one. I missed the first one. You guys had that over at Jay Brewer's place.
Yeah, that was at Prehistoric, and then the second one was at
Travis's, and that's when we met in person.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that was when that whole core group of us got in there. But we had talked in some of the carpet groups and things online, and yeah, that sounds right.
So Andy, you keep carpets as well?
Oh yeah. I have a bunch of jungles, have a bunch of coastals. I shouldn't say a bunch compared to this guy over here, but I do have a fair share of jungles and coastals, and I have a couple crosses, and yeah, I love Morelia. I've actually the first time I had a carpet was about 19 years ago, and that carpet python just recently, this is the first time I've ever mentioned it publicly, but he passed away toward the end of summer. And damn it, I'm not going to get emotional, am I? No. His name was Keto. He was an incredible snake that hated me.
So you had him for 19 years?
Yeah. So
he hated you this whole time?
Oh, he hated everybody, but I loved him. So he was just one of those snakes that really did prefer to be left alone. He liked getting taken out, but he wanted to be taken out so that he can just climb and just kind of chill out, bask a little bit. He never liked being handled. When I got him, I think he was about 2 or 3 years old. And the people that I got him from, they didn't know anything about snakes. Honestly, I think that they just got him for the cool factor. And something tells me that I don't know if that's something that stays with snakes. Like something tells me that either they did something to just traumatize him or something with being handled. And I don't know if that sticks with snakes or not, but he never he hated being touched. He hated being handled. So, but I loved him. He was incredible.
I don't think there's any like scientific evidence to back that up, but I know I hear like Kevin McCurley will talk about it, or anecdotally people think that there may be something going on, but
like abuse, or that somehow they get, I don't know.
Like there's some people who are really worried about mishandling their snake, especially monitor people worried about mishandling their monitor, and their monitor will like remember that they were, mishandled and will not trust them ever.
I think a monitor, though.
Riley, you're nodding way too much not to join in.
Dude, I agree with everything you were saying.
Like it's like you're waiting for Andy to talk, man. You can talk.
I just don't want to cut anyone off, especially because like it could jumble the audio if people are just listening. But no, I completely agree with all of that. I mean, in my experience, if you mishandle an animal at a young age, it will be harder to bring back around to like a calm, handleable state. It can be done, but you have to be really persistent about it. And reptiles remember these things. They're not all just dumb, like primitive beings. As we talk about monitors. Everybody's pretty aware that monitors are probably on the highest level of intelligence in the reptile world. But snakes can be quite intelligent as well. It's been demonstrated that they can, it's been demonstrated they can target train. I mean, Lori Torini does shift training with her bredli. Her
corn snakes are way, way well above the intellect of those carpets.
This is good.
Anyway,
they're light years away in their training, man. They made her breakfast this morning. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and then the carpets ate them.
Oh, that's fucked up, man.
But yeah, no, they can certainly remember like negative experiences, in my opinion. So I believe that, like, yeah, if he's that like, anti-handling, then he was either dropped or something like that once or twice, or handled by somebody who wasn't prepared for it, and it ended up being a very stressful and negative experience for that animal. And if they got it as a baby and you got it at 2 or 3, those first 2 or 3 years were probably negative for that animal. So, yeah.
Do you think that there's any chance that those could be like formative years, like it would for pretty much us?
Well, yeah. I mean, think about when a hatchling comes out, they're always, defensive, especially a lot of pythons. And that's because their instincts are telling them that they're going to die if they don't defend themselves. They have to survive. So they're hardwired for survival, even if they're captive animals. I'm sure over time you probably dilute that quite a bit, but the instinct's always there. And if they spend their whole first couple of years surviving on defending themselves because they're not being supported or handled improperly or all these other things, and they end up feeling stressed or threatened, and they end up defending themselves, and then they get put back in their safe spot in their enclosure, that's teaching them that what they've just done was successful at getting them back to safety, and a pattern of years of surviving that through their most vulnerable time before they become adults and confident, absolutely going to hardwire them for that for a very long time. And it would take a lot of work to undo that. So that's absolutely something that I feel like could be going on in that scenario.
And how conscious are you with your babies typically, like, of that fact?
Very conscious. Absolutely. Yeah. I think about it a lot, especially with my super zebras. They're very high strung, high stress animals. So I keep that in mind with all of these hatchlings, and I pay attention to them. And I approach them accordingly. I take care of them accordingly. I try to get them used to a standard routine of experiences so that by the time they're a couple months old, they have no problem with somebody changing water, taking them out for cleaning, offering them food, and then remembering that instance where they were offered food is also a completely different sequence of events to a different, outcome. And it's sort of like a form of training. It's essentially conditioning, when you come in with something warm and smells like food, and their reaction gets them food, they remember that. But if you come in and that scent isn't present in the room and you approach them in a completely different manner, they remember that as well. So some babies are more high strung than others, and you're with a lot of carpets, you're probably going to take some bites. And I still get bit by the super zebras every now and again, but like at first it was boom, 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 nonstop biting, bleeding all over the place. And now I can pick them up and do some quick servicing without so much as even eliciting a bite response. They're still stressed, but you can sort of learn what sets them off and then consider that like a boundary and do everything you need to do up to that point and just, you know, plan it out accordingly and treat them that way. And you can certainly get them to overcome that level of distress and high strung feeling for sure.
And now kind of something that, because Andy was saying like, you know, this is just an animal that's predisposed seemingly to not want to be handled. And then most, you know, baby Morelia are a little bit bitey. So how do you, both of you guys kind of determine who is an animal that you need to work with further or an animal that you just leave alone? Like, is there any determining factors?
For me, it's just how they handle the first month or two alive and how they get going. And once they're eating, do they treat the two instances different? And every animal I can sort of manage differently. You know, they get fed more or less on a similar schedule for ease of my care. And so they get sort of used to my routine, and you can see who figure it out and who, you know, which ones don't figure it out. And then the ones that don't figure it out, you just act differently around them. And that's my approach. So.
And Andy, what about you?
So, so full disclosure is I haven't produced my own carpets yet, but I've raised up quite a few babies. Some that are now going to be prepared to go this upcoming season. So I've had my fair share of probably the last 5-6 years of raising up babies. And I definitely see, I mean, you got to remember there's a lot of keepers that don't handle their snakes. They don't feel that it's something that's necessary. They certainly don't need to be handled. But for the ones that I personally enjoy taking my snakes out, some of them, I just don't feel the need to. I feel that with time and effort, you know, at first I've had a defensive just recently, like last year, I got a new coastal, and she was really bitey, just really defensive, you know, just really shy and scared. And she's completely used to me going in there now. You know, I go in there with a hook. And again, just like what Riley is saying, is you got to have that routine. So if you're going in there with a nice, hot, warm hand, and she's thinking, or he is thinking food, they're going to strike and they're going to bite. Go in there with a hook. Just get into those little routines. As annoying as it can be for some species, it's just simply deactivating them and then taking them out. So I definitely think that they learn. They definitely learn. They are not stupid. It's just a matter of being patient. And people get super discouraged with a bite, you know, like, again, with Rosies, if I take it back to the Rosies, I have way more experience over my timeline of keeping with Rosy Boas, is that, yes, they can be bitey, but if you spend time with them, typically they're going to settle down. They're not going to be, you know, too nutty. They're kind of like that weird uncle that every once in a while just has, like, he just flips his shit and on like Christmas morning and then gets in an argument. He gets in an argument with somebody and then he's fine. Then he gets fine in the afternoon.
Yeah.
That's what Rosies are like.
That's a good comparison. The other thing that, like, I always think about too is if you get bit from an animal that you're being too stubborn to take different approaches with, and you have a flinching response and you pull away and like you break teeth or you toss an animal across the room, that's definitely going to leave some bad impressions on that animal. And ultimately, like, you're going to set yourself up for failure if that keeps happening. So one of two things, if that's what's going to happen: one, take a bite and don't flinch and just take it. If it's going to happen, just tell yourself this could happen. And as you're going to change that water bowl and that baby bites you, if you don't flinch, you're not going to chuck it across the room. Or get a hook, make a little shield or something, use a note card. I have index cards for everything. So some of my animals, I'll just put the freaking little index card right in front of their face. I'll do it with adults too. It's only backfired on me twice with adults.
Yeah, usually
just having a barrier right there. I use barriers all the time. Yeah, it's great to have something that I try to keep a real stiff a piece of cardboard that's maybe about 7-8 inches long. That's only 4 to 5 inches wide. And it's something that's really easy. If you don't have your hook, you know, if you don't want to use a hook and you just want to put that barrier between you and the animal, I think that's a great way to do that. Darren had a good question, by the way, about that problem hatchlings. Did they come from defensive parents? I thought that was a really good one.
Yeah, so Darren asked, do problem hatchlings come from defensive parents? So I'm not sure if he means that problem in they're also defensive, like or problem like they're not eating. But I'm guessing he means defensive.
Yeah, I'm gonna talking about
defensive.
Yeah, like is the parental disposition heritable upon offspring?
For me, I have clutches that are consistently defensive. My Okati clutches always defensive, and then I have clutches that are always flighty, and most of them correspond with the parents' behavior, in my opinion, and that's anecdotal from what I see, but it's pretty damn consistent. You can pick out a morph of snake that I sell, and I can tell you if it's flighty, and never have worked with it. I can tell you its behavior. That's how much or how consistent it is.
So I have a good comparison with probably one of my calmest jungles. She's never struck, she's never hissed, she's never had a defensive coil in any way. Her name is Gemma, and I got her from Andrew Paris. And her mom, when she is not gravid, from what I hear from Andrew, is the exact same way. Is that a correlation? I have no idea, but I think that that's a great question to maybe start keeping track of. Okay, like, you know, these particular parents happen to be, you know, real a-holes. Are the babies the same way or not? This guy was an a-hole when he was a hatchling. I got him from Headhunter Reptiles, and I mean, I just went into his tub happens to be right in front of me. I didn't go in there with the hook like I said to do with routines, but I mean, he stopped with the whole striking and being defensive about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago or so, and now, I mean, the only time he's striking and ready to bite is when he's ready to eat, and that's the only time he's going to do that. It's when it smells like a rat or a mouse in here. So this is Shinobi, by the way, guys.
Shinobi. Where do you come up with these names?
Oils.
Typically, it can. So normally it requires some creative. Riley smiling.
You guys know something I don't know. I didn't know this was such a personal question. Sorry.
It is a personal question. I have to be in the right state of mind to be creative. Cheers! I'm gonna get another beer.
All right, so
I keep a list, and I have a note page in my phone, and I have a list of names that I would use. It's got to fit the personality, though. To get back to Darren's question, so my zebra to zebra clutch that I did last year.
God, that was a beautiful clutch, Perrin.
Thank you. I still have 2 males from that clutch, and they are aside from the super zebras. I'm keeping my pair of supers that I got from that, but I have 2 male zebras still kicking here, and they're probably my most high stress, prone to bite hatchlings in that rack. Some of them top 5 probably, and both of the parents are different in their levels of stress management, but the zebra female I got was very high strung, and I used to just call her Palm Blaster for the first couple of years, because she would bite me in the palm a couple times a year, just turn around from a dead stop to like as an adult, and it was not pleasant. And then she ended up mellowing out after over a year or 2 of handling and working with her, and so now I can handle her without hooks, no problem. And then the male zebra, he's like really twitchy and he's very alert and inquisitive. He recoils back, but he never struck. He's never tried to bite me or anything like that. But for whatever reason, that entire clutch they all have a good streak of the devil in them. They're just mean as hell. So
you know what's funny is that being a little more focused on jungles just in the last 4 to 5 years, a lot of people tend to have this opinion about zebras being a little more defensive, a little I hate using the word aggressive, but that just definitely a little less confident, and which means more striking, more biting. And
jungles seem a tinge that way to begin with, right? I mean, from my
asterisk here though, my MI clutch was like angels, all 16 of them, not a bad bone in their body, never a bite.
Last year,
yeah, the striped ones that I just had.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're all angels, dude. All just saints. Like to the point where for the first 4 weeks of feeding all of them, they would all eat, but not a single one of them would strike the food, and I'd have to leave it in there and just be gone in the morning. All of them. It was insane. It was way too consistent of an outcome in so many different factors. And I've had everybody who's gotten one for me tell me how shocked they are at how like placid and docile it is. Some first time jungle owners got a couple males from me, and they're just like, I don't get it. The reputation is that they're awful. If you met my zebras, you'd be like, yeah, this is a jungle carpet. This guy's a jerk. So
what sucks though is that too often I think in the reptile hobby is that people get too discouraged about a baby that's defensive and that's gonna bite you a little bit, man. It's like, dude, just calm down. If you're gonna get bit, it hurt more to hit your elbow on your dinner table. Yeah. So take the bite and deal with it and work with your animal, and you're gonna have an animal that's gonna be inquisitive and moving around. I think they're way more enjoyable.
Some babies learn that you're not responding and they're not getting any feedback from your behavior. They're not going to do that. And they realize it's not eliciting the response they intend. So they stop doing that because it's not giving them positive feedback. So some babies learn.
Yeah, it's not productive.
And if we were all scared of snake bites and all that stuff for little things, nobody would keep rainbow boas. Those things are just jerks from day one when they're born. They pack punches, man. They bite harder than my carpets do for sure, as like day born, like newborns, right then and there. And they all do it. They're all little spring-loaded staplers. They're terrible as babies. So, but they mellow out after about a month or so of going through and picking them up and cleaning and changing bedding and doing all this. They get used to it.
Yeah.
Do you think there could be anything to the fact that something like a maternal incubation clutch is probably incubating like a week or two at least longer than say something that's in an incubator as far as development goes?
I mean, there's definitely something to be said that slower and longer time is usually going to yield a better result. But my MI clutch, and granted for anybody who's, listening, I did one maternal incubation clutch once so far. I plan on doing it in the future and, collecting data on this. It's really fascinating to watch. You learn a lot after the fact. And, the hypotheses that's been presented and heard over the years is that it results in better feeders, bigger, healthier babies, and typically more calmer dispositions. And so I'm only one clutch into this sort of, never ending experiment, because I hope to do I try to do as much as I can, and just sort of see what the results are. And so far in one clutch out of 16 babies, not a single one has been bitey. On average, they're about 50% larger than previous hatchlings I've had.
That's
so
nuts.
It's very profound. In the first handful of carpet python clutches I produced through artificial incubation, I was typically getting hatchling size anywhere from 18 to 22 grams. And In the MI clutch, there was not one baby shy of 25, I think.
Wow.
And I'm pretty sure the average was 29 grams. So like they were the size of small hatchling ball pythons. As far as their weight goes, they were still skinny, man. Small eggs. Yeah. And so, and then, yes, much better, much smarter, much prettier, better eaters, all around the best. But ignore that. Ooh, sorry. Probably loud.
Has anyone or does anyone incubate python eggs at just straight up a lower temperature so it'll take longer?
I think the trend is that people are doing that now. They're starting to drop their temperatures because, you know, when I first got into this, even, you know, 8 years ago or whenever it was, as far as the hobby side, people were still really, preaching pretty profoundly 90 degrees incubation.
And it was definitely like 88 to 92 at the very,
that's dropping.
And most people I talk to now do 86.5.
Really?
You know what I mean? Oh yeah. A lot of Python guys really like that number. You know, it just seems to work well. And, you know, every clutch is different. So like that MI clutch I had, babies were coming out on day 59. So that's not like that much.
That's not
later.
Too late. No.
And I have the temperature records for ambient and just at the top of the female's head in the nest box. And I would have to like pull it up to look at it. But not only was there fluctuation from day to night as much as like, I want to say 8 or 9 degrees, you know, in a range of 8 or 9 degrees. So as low as like 82 point something at the lowest. And then at one point that the clutch got to like 92 for a couple, you know, at a couple points. So there's a huge range in fluctuation, and they still hatched out right around the same time as clutches that I've had at artificial incubation. But I think what is making the difference is the contact from the female. You know, the eggs get to breathe, and they get a break, and then they get to breathe, and they get a break. And so that fluctuation in temperature, I think, is pretty natural and probably good for them. Because the biology.
Why is that so hard for us? Why is that so hard for us as keepers?
We like control. We like control. We like to be able to control it and regulate it and say that what we did worked.
I could have hatched probably 2 jungle clutches up to this point, but I pulled eggs when I probably shouldn't have. The mom was perfectly wrapped around my first clutch she, you know, I had a successful pairing, had some eggs, and I was too much in control, just like Riley said, like, oh my God, I you know, Mr. Anxiety, I've gotta do this the right way. Well, I should have just left them in there. My incubator wasn't ready. I wasn't ready. I missed all the signs. She was gravid. I missed that. I was thinking she was just barely starting to build. And I think what Riley was just talking about with the whole MI thing is I think more people needed to kind of just, I know I shouldn't say you more people. I should say me. I could comment on that better than anybody else, is that I need to be a little more observant of the behaviors of what they're doing maternally. And I think that what they're able to do by themselves and fluctuate temperatures of eggs in such a sharp amount of time, I think that's amazing, just biologically speaking, of how they're able to do that. But yeah, we have to have our hands in on everything, man. And sometimes we just need to back off. Just enjoy them, look at them, observe them.
Yeah, and I can't take credit for like thinking about giving eggs natural fluctuations. Like that is not my idea. Like that was come up with from somebody way smarter than me, way before me. And I just happened to overhear somebody talking about it in reference to what they do. I couldn't even tell you where or who, but it just made me think about like what eggs typically experience in the wild. And then when I was doing research for the Madagascar giant hognose, I was looking up the climate in various places around the island, figuring out what the highs and lows were and what these animals experience, and then going through whatever research papers I could find and figure out what they did for nesting and den stuff. And it ended up being kind of interesting.
I don't know where Riley went. I feel like he just exited himself from the chat. Well, he couldn't have exited himself from the chat because, and of course, Andy's going to pee while this is happening. So I am here. And I think what's interesting about maternal incubation, and there's Riley. I don't know, man. I was like, Andy went to go pee, and then you just dropped out mid-sentence. That
was weird. Okay, well,
good thing you came back incredibly fast.
Yeah, it just instantly, like, I clicked the private chat, and all of a sudden it was like, you're out. And I was like, I need to go back. And so I just quickly did something, and there it was. So
I literally only said the words maternal incubation while you were gone.
Oh, well, it's worth doing. It's worth experiencing. Your animal's behavior changes entirely. So the jungle that I did MI with last season, I got her as a baby from Todd at Psychotic as a yearling, about a yearling. And she was mean. She would bite. She would stress pee and stress poop all over me anytime I touched her. And it took like a year and a half, 2 years to get her to mellow out to the point where I could handle her freely without a hook. And then she was like my best animal. I could take her to educational programs. She's a sweetheart. She's an angel. I bred her 3 years ago. And then last year bred her again. And after the first breeding, everything was great. Like no issues whatsoever. No behavioral changes, anything like that. I got her around food and everything was good. After last season's clutch of striped jungles, she came out of it much more ravenous and hungry. And I'm assuming it's because of the maternal incubation and the extra 2 months without food. But I conditioned her very well going into it because I was planning on doing it. So she was very like fat store ready for the clutch. And she's a big animal. So like she's perfect candidate for it. And she did marvelously. Like she came out of it and, I held her up and was like, man, if you pick this animal up and like, you didn't see the sunken belly from, being vacant of eggs from her oviduct, like this animal is healthy. Like she has great body condition. You couldn't even tell, she looked a little like extra skin in the back for a month or so afterwards because she was so big. But like, dude, she handled that whole clutch really well, the MI situation. But now she's super, super aggressive, like in and out of the cage. She's like looking for food. It's very clear her motivation requires food. Like that's what she's going for. And it doesn't turn off. She's like trying to catch up caloric intake wise. She's trying to put that back. And I think she's feeling it. So it's interesting.
Have you done this with any other animals or is she the only one?
She's the only one so far. This year, I am planning on going maternal incubation with my albino Darwin, who's been breeding a bunch for the last month with the male het, and I've caught a bunch of locks, and she's behaving like she's been paying much more attention to thermoregulation, and I've got my fingers crossed that she's going to go for me this year. And the reason why I want to do it with her, she's a fair amount smaller than the jungle, but she's a good size and she ate really well leading up to this season. But Darwins are notoriously hard babies to feed at first from reputation. And because of the hypotheses about, MI potentially influencing the ability for them to eat better, and then my one clutch doing MI and all those babies eating really well from the get-go. I'm curious to see if the reputation of Darwin's, and their stubborn feeding habits, if I get a different result from going maternal incubation with the Darwin clutch this year.
Frogs and lizards, right? For Darwin's? Is that what the...
Yeah, lots of little skinks, little geckos, some frogs, small lizards out there. So I've got the Reptilinks 3-pack scent in the freezer. It's got a knoll, gecko, and frog scent. So I've got three things right there, and then I actually have a bag of Europlatus shed, like a Ziploc bag that I got recently. So I can do that. So I try to like remember everybody's techniques for certain feeders that are not just like, yeah, they take rodents right off the bat. Anytime somebody throws out a tip, I remember it. I just like, it's one of those things. It's an invaluable tool to at least have heard it once. Because if you hear it once, and it might be the craziest like plan F in your tool bag.
It's worth a
if
shot.
it works,
it
works,
yeah,
like
exactly.
Yeah. So just being prepared is invaluable.
We got to remember to come back and revisit that, man. That's going to be really cool to see how the MI clutch for that specific.
I'd like to do it for at least a clutch every year, just to put as much data together, because you can only make so much of a strong inference off of one, sample. You need as large a sample size as possible. So, we'll see.
I definitely want to do at least 1 or 2 MI clutches this year. Our buddy Scott actually has an incubator for me. I still have to connect with him and get that here, get it set up and get it going before I feel even comfortable. I mean, we're months away before eggs are coming up.
Do it now.
I know.
Is this like your first? Like, it seems like you have a lot of animals coming up, and this is going to be like a really big year for you in comparison to years in the past.
2020, man, is going to be our year. I'm so excited. It's going to be freaking huge. And I'm just like trying to soak up as much as I can in terms of wisdom from people like Riley, other keepers that have been doing things. And I just want to, I've done things in the past where I just wasn't paying close enough attention to the small details, and I've missed too much. So I need to be a little more diligent, pay closer attention to what their behaviors are, their body, what they're looking like, and just be ready. Life is, the good thing is I don't have, if I don't have any babies, it's okay. It's not going to make or break me.
Check this out, Andy. If you get a clutch of eggs, if you don't have an incubator ready, let the female take them.
Yeah.
She'll do what she does at first, is just at least where she decides to lay them, right? And even if she abandons them, because you are managing the climate of their enclosure and your room to the most, best of your abilities, chances are they're still going to hatch. So Ryan Dumas had a clutch of carpets from a jag a couple years ago, and he let her go MI, and she held them and beehived them for about 42 days. She even ate on them, and then at one point abandoned them, and then coiled up underneath them, and then just straight up left them. He just left them alone. They hatched.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay.
Just a thought.
See, little things like that, I think is just super encouraging for all the keepers out there, though, because sometimes we're not set up for incubators, or we're not set up in the most ideal situations. And it's like, just go for it sometimes.
As much as
I should have went for it.
Yeah,
you told me to let her MI 2 or 3 years ago.
I was like, I think if I just let her do it.
I think you did. I'm pretty sure you did. And I was like, no, I can't do that. I can't.
At the very least, if it goes south, you still obtain experience and knowledge from that experience. Like that occurrence, you still learn from it. Data is data. That's information that makes you better informed for the next time in the future. Even if you don't get any babies out of it, you'll still learn something.
Yeah, I think what's hard is that trying something new, and especially in the beginning, and like every clutch means so much to me most of the time, it all means so much that it's so hard to take that risk to do any chance to kind of screw and mess with things a little bit.
Yeah. I tried breeding carpets 2 years before I was successful, and 2 years of like aiming for something and falling flat on your face after you put money into it, it's just costing you more money down the line. It's kind of discouraging when you're first getting into like a certain species. So it took me 3 years before I was successful breeding carpets, and I had been keeping them a couple of years before that. It's not like I grabbed adults and was like, oh, why won't they breed? Like I got them, raised them up, started putting together a group, and then the first 2 years I had animals that, they won't let me breed. I'm gonna sell them wholesale on Facebook.
It's my retirement.
No, but you just have to be patient and learn from your mistakes, because everybody goes through those growing pains. Nobody's different, it might seem like somebody's just hopped onto the scene and they hit it out of the park first try. They're like posting about their, snow carpets the first year they tried. It's like, that's awesome. Like, but they probably duffed it several times on a few projects before that. Like, we all do it. So it is what it is.
Yeah. I think I also just empathize with that guy who's like, I've had these damn snakes for 5 years. Finally got eggs. Like, hopefully I can get some money for damn rodents this year.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that.
That's all that's honestly at the end of the day. If I can pay for my rodent bill with some of the babies that I sell, man, I'm golden. That's awesome. I mean, my son helps breed rodents for his animals and for some of mine and stuff, but it's honestly, we can try to maintain this collection, and if we can get some babies, awesome. I mean, there's still new species that I haven't done yet that I want to do. Morelia being a big genus on my list that I really want to get really good at. I don't want to be mediocre. I really want to dial it in, but it's going to take a lot of those chances and figuring things out and collecting data. And but it's the fun part of it for sure. But it's never been something where I feel like I have to do it either. I've kept snakes a lot longer than I've bred. I mean, I could have been breeding snakes for probably years and years and years ago had I really put a lot of energy into it, and I just never felt like I really had to. It wasn't until probably at least 8 years ago where I felt like, hey, I want to kind of transition or shift my focus and do a little more focusing on breeding. I guess Jeff's,
that's a thing
too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
but I guess
they're breeding right now, Jeff. Mr. Jeff Fruit, they are breeding right now. So yes,
he was asking about Dumeral's boas.
Dumeral's boas are incoming, buddy.
Nice. That will be awesome. I mean, will that be? Well, I guess. Damn, you're used to live bursts. For most people, it's like I'm used to hanging around with colubrid and python people, and they're like, "Holy shit, I'm gonna have live babies." But I guess you're kind of used to that.
Well, you know what though? No, not at all. I've missed every signal there is to miss on the Dumeral's boas, man. I've messaged so many people like, what the hell? I have a litter. My youngest female, that she was a new acquisition actually, just a couple. I want to say 2 years ago. They have about a 6 month. So anyway, I missed every sign there was. I totally just didn't think that they went, and she ended up having a litter. They were all stillborn. That sucked. At the very early part of this year, my big female, my older female, she had a great litter. And again, I missed it. I wasn't one of those things that for as long as I've been keeping on the breeding side of things, it's different. There's extra steps that you need to take with your animals, palpating for follicles. I'm not good at it. I need to learn.
I can't do it either.
I get a little reluctant with the pressure, and I'm not quite feeling what it is that I need to feel. And I think that's something where that one-on-one mentorship sometimes is where it's so beneficial. There's not very many people like me around here where I live. I'm just going to put it out there that my local reptile community is like, it's weak. I'm calling you out. Everybody out in Salinas Valley, freaking lame. Lame.
Is that near any like major city, or is it
San Ho?
Whereabout is it?
Yeah, it's close to the Bay Area.
You're close to South Bay, right? San Ho.
Yeah. So I'm in the Monterey Bay Peninsula in California.
Right.
Sweet. So I guess that's kind of a thing that something you said before, like you never really thought about breeding. And now I feel like the mentality is everyone's thinking about breeding before they're even keeping.
I agree.
Well, it's because that's what they see first, because the influencers that are out there in the public eye that are also typically breeding. So yeah, a lot of those guys make their living that way. Damn, Andy, send her to me.
She's so badass, dude. She's right. She's
is that a yearling?
She's in shed. She is 11 months old. So this is just, I'm putting this out there for Jeff. So Jeff seems to appreciate the Dumeral. I love Dumerals, man. They're such an incredible species. So Jeff, that's for you, buddy. Hopefully you're able to see this, and that's just one of them.
Nice.
It's one of those like just iconic animals that most people. I go over people's houses and I'm like, wait a second, you have a Dumeral's boa? It's like that one snake that everyone kind of covets and has, and they just have one of.
They're just not like anything else.
Yeah, no, they're
they're awesome. Totally different.
I'm glad you like her, Jeff. I have another one right next to her too that I can pull out. That's pretty freaking amazing too. You should see the male I picked up this year. It's going to be for my future breeder male. For those two females to just kind of outcross, diversify the bloodlines, and I wish that's where, as collectively as a hobby, I wish that we can have a little more say in getting together with other countries, just for the sake of being able to import some newer animals or newer bloodlines, or connect with zoos that are able to do that. Because I mean, the gene pool's pretty shallow. I mean, you really do need to look out and see who you can connect with. There are some Dumerals breeders out there that they've been so good to me. Me being, I've been keeping Dumerals for 12 years, 11 years. I just had my first litter this year, early January this year. Again, I missed all the signs. Normally they would have been born July, August, September. And my pairing was so far off that they ended up, she ended up giving birth in January of 2019. So if that gives you any indication of how shitty of a breeder I am with Dumerals.
Well, it's a large, it's a heavy bodied animal too. It would seem difficult.
You should see my female. She is just muscle. She looked big. Honestly, when I was looking at her, somebody with experience probably would have said, "Oh, she's gravid and she's probably going to be dropping the litter, and here's your pre-laced shed." And I was over here thinking like, "Oh, she's primed and ready to get paired up." No, I was so far off. So, but I'm learning, and that's where just having some humility, reaching out to the guys that have more experience. I don't care that they're younger than me, and just being like, man, help me out. Any tips that you can provide, man, please help me out. And there's so many awesome Dumerals breeders out there. We can name drop all night long, but they're, I think at the end of the day, just have some humility, and reach out to the guys that have done it successfully. And even if it's not with somebody that's successful, sharing tips and tricks with each other, I think that's how we're all going to progress.
Yeah, I think we've gotten to unfortunately, we're at a point where, like, back in the day in the forums, I feel like people talked much more about husbandry and stuff like that. But now it's just more like what locality is my carpet python, or what is my carpet python? Like, instead we used to have in-depth discussions, and not me. These are other people just a little bit before an older generation than me. But and they would go back and forth about husbandry. Are you calling me old? No.
Are you calling me old?
Saying I won't say that I was there. I wasn't there. I was too young to be there. That's all.
Andy's old.
But you are older. Yeah, that's true.
Andy's old. Andy's old. Andy's older than all of us.
Shit.
Oldest man in the trio right now. Just saying that for the record. Don't you forget it, old man.
Actually, I'm younger, but the fact that I had kids made me age faster. So take that shit.
Whatever.
I like how if you go from left to right, it's like a hair loss ad.
Hey. I only have hair because I haven't shaved it in a couple weeks, bro.
Hey, look, you get yourself a 16-year-old daughter, you won't have shit for hair left. Look, gone.
That's why I grow a beard.
I don't even know if I can grow that anymore, man.
Just grow an epic mustache.
So, Riley, are you trying to like start a boa war? With you got a boa out yourself?
Oh, yeah, don't start with me.
This is
That's
for those of
amazing.
you
That's
who
one of
are
your
watching.
holdbacks.
Yeah, this is a holdback.
Yep.
One of my females. This is my highest orange holdback, who's the most like her mom. In color, she's also like snappy like her mom. She has not grown out of it at a year and a half old. But yeah, this is one of my females. I kept 2.3 from that litter because there were just so many different phenotypes, and I wasn't sure how they would age, so I kept one of each in a favorable ratio. And so far, the stuff that's taken on after mom has been the best. I think I might have sold some holdback quality animals by accident because if I was aiming for something like dad, it was difficult. No, I know I sold some holdback quality animals.
Yeah.
There's a gentleman in Arizona who has 5 of these babies from the first 2 litters. Like
your first litter was, I mean, all the litters from that mom. That pairing is fuck. Oh my god, dude,
I kept 2.2 from the first litter, and I sold 3 of them, so I only have 1 of them left.
I should have got in on that first litter. You've had so many things that I just still like. Oh, I should have gotten in on that. Oh, I should have gotten in.
I've sold quite a few of them to experienced keepers who have had a very difficult time with them. So.
Yeah. Really?
Rainbows aren't for my room. Not at this time.
Yes, that's the point right there. I'm glad you brought that up. It's the room. It's not your ability as a keeper. It just really depends on everything else you have in your room. If you have a big warehouse full of retics, you're going to kill your rainbows.
I can't tell you right now the heartache that I wish people would know the quality of animals that were in my collection as short as just 2 years ago that are no longer in my collection. And and also, Joe, I just want to give you a huge shout out to your community. This comment section is awesome.
I feel like we usually don't stream at 10
Ryan.
Eastern, so
Ryan.
people usually...
Ryan, your hairline, I don't know about your hairline, but if you comment on my hairline,
Ryan's a very young man, but
he's a lumberjack.
And
Ryan's
Jeff,
a lumberjack.
Hey Jeff, just FYI, yeah, man, if you want to sex by spurs, 100%. In my experience, it's been 100% of the time. If you see visible spurs, that is a male.
Is that like an S&M thing, Andy?
So,
I cannot comment on that, and that's why I've been married for 15 years. What?
Good man.
What? No, I am just kidding. I'm just kidding.
So, what is it about when you say like you can't keep it in that room? Why is that? Is it the ambient
my room
humidity or the ambient temps, or no? I just mean Riley.
It
like
comes down to ambience.
Yeah, so the ambience with these guys, no, Andy's dead on though. Like he's keeping boas in there that require drier temps. Doomerals can take fluctuation in seasons. Rosies
they don't
take
like
dry. Pits like it dry.
Yep.
A lot of different things. These guys need very high humidity, especially when they're younger. And as adults, if you don't have the humidity right, because they have rather thin layers of skin, it'll get stuck and tear pretty easy. Dry habitat can lean towards like respiratory ailments, things like that. So you really just gotta keep minimal ventilation but high humidity, and just think about how you're keeping them. But a room humidifier, bedding that can take a lot of moisture, large water dish, like there's a lot you got to do. And you can still totally duff it just because like you have a huge warehouse or something and the airflow is just so much that it's impossible to retain humidity in there regardless of what your ventilation is. So sometimes it's just like the space isn't built for it. And a lot of people will either keep them just right or cook them. These guys don't like, excessive heat.
If I had adults... I'm sorry, Riley. No, I was just
go for it.
You hit it right there. That's what it is. I mean, that difference between babies and adults is such a huge variant. Babies, do not work in this room. If I had adults, if I were to acquire some adults, they would be fine in this room.
Yeah.
I think
you can,
probably
you can soak an adult and help
of
out.
A rainbow. Yep.
Yeah, the first couple of years are tough for them. If you don't have it right, it's just not going to go well.
And that can't be like overcome by sphagnum hide or anything.
I mean, you can. You're just, think about how much work you're going to have to put in. Like, if you have a dry room, you can
not if you're ambient.
That. Yeah, I mean, you're going to have to think about like, if your ambient's too high, that's a limiting
anything
factor.
Above 85. Yeah, anything above 85 for a baby rainbow, you're done.
You'll cook
for a considerable amount of time. Like, I mean, I'm not saying that above 85 and they're gone. I'm just saying if it's anything above 85 for a fair amount of time, your baby, rainbow.
Like if your AC goes out in the middle of summer and you have a heat wave coming through, they're screwed. They're really screwed. They don't do well with extremes for long periods of time.
Man, let's move on to a good subject. You're bringing all kinds of memories right now, dude. You're being emotionally difficult.
So rainbows are on the way. By the way, that being said, 2020, I've got a litter going right now. The female seems to be pretty much done with the male and getting thick, so I think she might be.
Do you think she's
set for this? Oh,
she's gorgeous. Joe, have you been watching that female? That female is a beast.
It seems like you've got her like on like clockwork because it seems like you're able to breed her year after year. I mean,
I could pair her once and know that she'll take. I know exactly when she cycles. Is
that part of being?
That's
how
why
much of that is the animal? How much is that you dialing it in?
Yeah,
she's the only animal I know like that, but she's also the only female that I've had as long as her. I've had her I only got her as an adult, right? So I didn't get her as a baby, so I didn't have the pleasure of raising her up and getting to know her that way. But I got her at what I assume was probably 5 years old. Bred her that season after slimming her down because I got her in I think I got her like early 2014.
It was in the spring.
No, I got her 2015. I bred her 2016. Yeah, I got her in spring, and then I bred her in 2018. And over the time I brought her down in weight because she was way overfed. But I followed Dave Collins' recipe for when he starts altering temps and how he cycles his animals. And with rainbows, they're very distinct in their behavior, at least in my experience. They really will tell you when they're done with a male, when they need a break, when they're swelling for follicular growth, and when they're swelling for ovulation. Like, it's unmistakable. They are just very easy to read body language wise, in my opinion. The males are always interested as long as it's the right time of year. The females will always abide as long as it's the right time of year. Soon as you start seeing the female and male not instantly together the day you're putting them together, that usually means they either need a break or she's done. If they're not in shed. So if they're in shed, they're really not going to do much. But like if you start putting a male in and he's got no interest and you're like the end of January, early February, they're done. Either she took or she didn't at that point. Usually that's when they're gonna the late December, early January breedings are what matter the most in my experience. And they take a long time to then take that, go through follicular growth, have a shed, and go through the cycle. And then they spend a few months basically cooking because they go another 120 days after that. So usually I don't see babies earlier than August.
But you've you've moved these seasons that you've produced them. You've bred her during a forest fire. You have
I forgot about that actually. Shit.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
I have photos of her and the male locked up in a pillowcase in actually in this tub that my foot is on right now, down in LA at Mike Renault's place in LA and West Hills, ADD reptiles. I evacuated from the fires, packed my car up with all my animals in pillowcases, and I just threw them together because like they're not going to eat each other. They're not cannibals, and it's December. This is when they breed. This is great. They're super compatible this time of year. They don't need much heat. The ambient in the car will be fine. I get to Mike's place. Their house ambient will be fine. And he had plenty of rack space available. But I was like, nah, these things will just be fine right here on the floor. And I look in there, and they're locked up and breeding. And I was like, well, forget you. I'm paying attention to everyone else. And then I had a killer litter that year. So they're the Thomas Fire babies.
Yeah. It's just funny that, you have a baby who you need to fight so hard to keep it alive, and then you have these adults that are just so solid.
Breeding them seems to be the easy part. It's just raising babies up. They're very, I want to say delicate, but when they bite you, you're like, how are you delicate? They have just a very thin skin, and they desiccate easily, and they don't tolerate excessive heat.
They got some crazy jaws on them, though.
Dude, their heads are so long and big as babies. Their heads are really big for a baby, like proportionately. Like if you look at a corn snake baby's head, like yeah, it's a little bit bigger than the body, but like it makes sense. Rainbows, it doesn't make sense. It's like a crocodile's head on a little snake body, and it just opens like 135 degrees, and they just wham, and they just hit the crap out of you. When a baby rainbow hits you, and you just watched it like literally enter the world, and it bites you and you're bleeding, you're like,
what? Yeah.
What the hell is that?
Yeah. Agreed.
So
17-year-old BRBs from Simply Serpents. I love your comment section, by the way, Joe. Seriously, man, this is awesome.
Sweet.
These are all, by the way, like these are all people that, I mean, Riley probably knows James Lewis.
Yeah, I know
Ryan Cox, and like all these people are just our friends who like to hang out with us. So
yeah.
I don't like.
We appreciate them hanging out with us.
Sorry,
Andy. Andy, this is what you've been missing. I don't blame you. You have family obligations. I'm not saying you've done anything wrong, but I'm saying welcome to the world, because this is like there's like a good group. It's a good community that follow.
I ignore my kids. I kick them out of the house and make them fend for themselves on the streets.
Perfect. So we'll interfere with the podcast.
Earn your way, children.
Yeah, you're like, there's a podcast lifestyle now, all right? We're going to do live streams from 10 to 12 and talking about maternal incubation.
We're going to throw burritos at you.
Rainbows. Oh, don't talk about food right now.
What about Guyana rainbows?
Ryan was commenting on them. He says that those are cool. Dude, I'm on the fence on rainbows, but I saw some import Guyanas. Yeah.
Beautiful. The Guyana red tails are beautiful. They're a true red tail.
Not a red tail, rainbow.
Oh, the Guyana rainbows. Yeah. I missed that part.
That's all right. You still have to learn how to read. I can teach you.
Spanish first, bro. The Guyanas are really nice. They're a darker base color. And if you're familiar with the Colombian rainbows, the Epicrates Morris, the contrast and pattern shows up much more when they're babies, and as they get older, that base pattern comes to life a lot more, and it ends up being more of a maroon mahogany. And what that does is it reduces a lot of the contrast. So if you're looking at a rainbow boa species for distinct markings and standout patterns, they're going to be somewhere in between the Morris and the Centria, the Brazilians. They're somewhere in the middle. Those guys and the Argentinian rainbows, they're like in between contrast as far as, because some Colombians go darn near patternless. They like don't have any pattern. Like they're born with quite a bit and they lose a lot of that.
I love earth tones though.
But yeah, if you like that color palette, it's really, really rich and pretty nice. And then all rainbow boas have that nice rainbow iridescence. So if you want a rainbow iridescent sheen, you can't go wrong with any of them. But it just depends on what the color palette you want. If you're interested in morphs and
what's up, Hector?
Your boy Hector.
Hey, you know what? Greetings.
Ooh, I want tacos.
I'll take that greetings if you come over here and cook some for me. What kind of meat? What kind of meat?
Where's them tacos?
Lengua.
I'll take some tacos. Ooh, shit. Look at this white boy talking about lengua.
I lived in Dallas for like a day. I learned some things.
I also wanted to let Sarah's inspiration know that my red background is festive, but it's not ironed. It's not ironed. Sorry. It is red and festive, correct. It's just hiding boa file enclosures though. I'm backwards.
So you don't get the reflection of the light on the glass like I get.
See, I'm classy. See, I'm classy, trying to block reflections.
Dude, I had to build this fucking wall behind me.
Hey, but that's
hammer
pretty
and
nice.
nail.
Yeah, right. I thought that was a fabric.
You fucking kidding me? I built this, dude.
Dope.
I don't know.
That looks good.
we had Colin on the pre-show. I forgot what happened, but we were with Colin and Mike from Crosstown, and he referenced something, and he kind of referenced it being immovable in an actual wall. I was like, dude, you fell for this shit? I don't know. Maybe I gave it away,
honestly, I've watched your stuff online on YouTube, and I actually love the background. I think it's great. That's why I was like super hypercritical of myself. I'm like, oh shit, we're gonna be on video. I thought we were just gonna do I was like, oh no, I gotta get something to hide, my blue masking tape and stuff.
No, I mean, to be honest, most people, these are all just our friends having fun. And then most people, most people are going to listen on the audio, in which, by the way, this is probably the worst podcast to listen to audio because there's little things going on that either we're giggling about or like referencing things that we're showing.
I blame it on you. You're the damn host. It's your fault, man.
Am I supposed to put this shit together?
My. Jeff's calling me a communist Mexican. What kind of folks do you have on your freaking chat? Holy shit!
Hey,
Moscow. I got people calling me Taco Land. Man,
I like how you called us out for getting distracted with the chat, and then you guys started joking about how I would be distracted by the chat, and then Andy's the one being distracted by the chat. Just saying.
It's a fair point. I'm playing into it.
Hey.
2 against 1. I'm used to it.
Yes.
Oh, I was about to say something way inappropriate.
Nope.
I'm glad.
Is this where I ask like what your podcast is about, or is it too late to do that?
What podcast?
No, let's do it.
Okay.
Oh,
it's this one.
I like Andy's answer. No,
we're stealing yours, Joe. We kicked you off. We sent Melissa a buyout contract that she's not in North Carolina visiting her parents. She's in Miami, balling out like swoop, 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 swoop. I just made millions of dollars. These idiots just bought my podcast. No, I'm just kidding.
Yo, if that is the case, I can fill the whole house with animals now. The bedroom, there can be animals everywhere.
I want to see a wall of white lips.
I can't wait until my cage stack is in my bedroom. My wife is like chomping at the bit, waiting.
And your son's into it too?
Yeah, my son. So my kids either it's a choice. Be disowned or be into reptiles.
Fair.
I would have never. So my wife at the time, first date. One chance, one question. Do you like reptiles? And she answered correctly. And now we've been together for over 20 years. That's half my life, man. That's crazy.
I talked to Melissa about that on the first date as well. I said, listen, I breed reptiles, and this is a thing, and it's not going to stop.
Hell yeah.
It existed before you. And you got to be
in
cool
or you
with
out?
That. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You on the team or you off? That's
Hell
it.
Yeah.
And I
think or you out.
I think that's kind of what you have to do to be respectful and not waste your time as an adult.
Yeah.
Don't waste my time. Rachel, I'm not going to waste your time.
You don't have to put it in like your Tinder profile or anything, but just bring it up.
The first time Rachel came over, we hung out. She came over to my spot before we ended up going out, and she saw that I had the master bedroom in the house because I was renting this room in Summerlin on the hill. And there's my bed sort of in the middle of the room under the window overlooking the ocean. And then literally 41 quart rack on one side, a wall that went up about 12 feet of cages on the other side. At the foot of the bed, there was a big wooden cage with like more cages on it. So I could like wake up and just look up and see like snakes cruise around, and then cages behind that. So like you had to like sidestep around cages in order to navigate my room. And that was the first thing she saw when she came over. So it was like, I didn't even talk about it. She just came in, and if she didn't run out screaming, it was good. So like,
yep.
I want to try to find, there's this picture that I saw earlier this week of this guy who basically his bed, dude, was on top of a giant enclosure.
Oh yeah.
And he had the enclosure above the bench.
I want that. I want that.
The headboard is an enclosure.
Yeah, dude. I saw one where like it was a king size mattress on top of this like it had to have been like a 7 by 9 foot like enclosure with glass on 3 sides, and it was like big with lights, and there's a big old like berm underneath it or something. I was like,
you know what? The only thing I have against that is the fact that all of the vibrations would end up messing up.
Hey. You just find an engineer who knows how to do a suspended like suspension with cushion, springboards, foam insulation. You're good.
Is on top of an enclosure and the headboard is a reptile, you're never getting laid, and you don't have to worry about it, and you're fine.
Or maybe you're always getting laid.
Oh, yes, and 3 kids later.
Unless you're married or in a relationship, then it just doesn't matter. You're gonna be sleeping on the couch anyway.
No.
That's depressing.
Oh my god!
But it's like I think we've all done that where we fill up our
Ryan said make it a welded frame. So my wife and I were actually discussing bed frames for our Doomerals. Our Doomerals, all of our breeder adults are inside of our master bedroom, and then pretty soon all of the breeder carpets are going to be in the master bedroom as well. She's waiting for me to finish the flooring in order to get the cage stacks up there. But we were talking about getting some sort of like a big enclosure underneath our carpet guys never get laid, ball pythons breeder nonstop 24/7. I beg to differ, but
Ryan knows nothing about either subject. Moving on.
You know what? I don't know, Ryan, whether
you heard that,
Ryan.
Riley is
correct, but I'm going to agree with him just for the sake of pissing you off.
Ryan, you're a wonderful guy. But you
Ryan,
heard that.
You're not a wonderful guy because you
heard that too.
Because you said I didn't get laid, and I got laid twice yesterday. So anyway, Doomerals, Boas underneath our mattress. We were thinking about doing something like that kind of integrated. I just want to do a communal setup. I mean, damn. You all right over there?
Me?
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know.
Dude, I would be scared if I just accidentally kicked the front glass or something like that.
Oh, dude, I do that all the time barefoot. So honestly, if you get thick enough glass, you're just going to hurt yourself.
That's fair.
You'll be fine. Glass is strong.
I'm glad Riley's done this before.
Dude, I've broken plenty of toes. We're good.
Tempered glass.
I know the threshold of when they break, and glass is stronger than your toes. Trust me.
He's going full-blown Owen tonight. Oh, man. I'm almost there.
Oh, that's it.
And dude, I mean, do you have like an 88-degree hot spot at the foot of the bed, at the head of the bed? I mean, what's the plan there?
I'll make it whatever temperature it needs to be.
Yeah.
Oh.
This is getting wild.
Yeah.
Hold on.
let's come back. Let's go back to the podcast.
Yeah, we need to get back. We need to roll back. Sorry, my bad.
Let's go back. Let's go back to the podcast. Your podcast. What were we talking about?
He didn't warn you about me.
Yeah, Andy is almost as bad, if not worse, than me. Sometimes.
At what?
Potentially.
I think you guys are both great. I think we're having a good time.
So Mike Koziski, you need to display your empties. And
oh, damn. So you guys are like really going here. Once again, for the audio crowd, that would be 5 beers for Andy.
I got 2 more underneath.
And 4 for Riley. Whoa.
Yeah.
And nothing on my end. Sorry, guys.
Simply Serpents.
Nothing on Joe's end.
Nothing.
So Joe, you have a constructive criticism.
Yeah, what's that?
They do not like being on the Eastern time zone during these late podcasts.
Yeah, no shit, me either. Well, I mean, it's December 23rd. Gotta do what you gotta do. Andy's got kids to feed.
No, they fend for themselves.
Party on, Wayne.
Negative.
No.
They have 2 choices: Christmas presents or food. They can hunt neighborhood cats.
And I'm guessing in 2 days they're gonna have Christmas presents. Fair. It's fair. But it's like, yeah, man, it's late.
Mike is behind.
Late.
Yeah, I see. So Mike calls us out, and then don't call us out. This is what you will get during our podcast. You'll always be 1 or 2 beers behind, right?
Riley's like, listen, it's not this bad. I mean,
I'm trying to curb my liquor, but I'm terrible at it.
Good.
I mean, I wouldn't know any different, to be honest, and I'm the sober one.
Yeah.
Well, unless you didn't just burp right there. Now I know. This is an extreme audio experience.
For everybody wondering, that was Joe, not Riley.
Yeah, that really could have been anyone.
Sarah will accept Christmas presents over food. Only a couple days away, Sarah. It's called fasting for a good reason.
Ryan wants to see me get a straw. No,
So,
yes,
would you want to keep community under your bed, Andy?
Joe's trying to rally.
I'm trying to rally the troops.
Oh,
fuck, man! We were talking about the podcast.
Oh yeah.
All right, you guys go do your. Riley, you have a spiel.
I do.
Seems like you seem like you want a spiel, dude.
I'll spiel right now.
Are you
I'll spiel all over this place.
Oh my god!
Here's my spiel. That sounds bad.
I'm offended.
Too. I'm not wearing a trench coat and showing this off for everyone who's just listening. That's bad too. Rewind.
All right, I'll rewind the live stream. No worries.
Yeah, you can edit this, right?
Yeah. Cut this out. No. Cut this out.
So Andy and I are a couple episodes into recording a new podcast. I shouldn't say we. Andy launched we recorded like a pilot, I guess, but we're not like pitching it to a studio. It's a pilot for us, but it's more of like a
promo.
Get to know you, intro,
trailer.
Yeah, pilot. Yeah. It's like 17 minutes long, and it's just a little blurb. It got the feed going so we can get everything ready and all of the Apple and Google feeds for all the podcast platforms. It's already getting put up in
Riley,
a lot of the major. Yeah,
we lost the host of this podcast already. So apparently
that's okay.
You weren't supposed to say promotion. Anything. I can still hear you. He's on camera on purpose.
The people listening to this on a podcast platform are gonna be like, "What the hell just happened?"
If ever there was a time to log into your damn and watch this time, because
the best part is you can't cut it out for the live audience right here, so they're seeing all of our blemishes.
We bored our host to the point that he left. And he said, "Screw you guys."
I know what he did.
You don't know shit, Riley.
Yeah, bro, I've been doing. Hey, that was 13, bro. Yeah. So the podcast, Oh,
You said you've
man.
been keeping
That's
snakes since you were
bad.
13?
No, I've been keeping snakes since I was 8, but I've
Oh.
been doing something else since I was 13.
Oh.
Hey.
Wrangle them in.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Sorry to all the listeners. So the podcast.
Oh, shit. Yeah, that's right. You didn't get there, did you?
I was almost there, and then Andy derailed me.
I blame Andy on that one.
So we
wasn't here then.
are.
Me no speako English.
So we just launched an intro thing to get all the feeds going. So it starts on all the podcasts. It's up today. Andy got that rock and roller. But we're basically just like waiting on some of the other platforms to like just approve it, because they just have to make sure the RSS feed is authentic and everything works well, and it'll mesh with all their servers. And so like Google and Apple, they just have like a review process that takes longer than platforms like Stitcher.
Yeah.
So it's going up. It's been already approved on a lot of things. So you can start looking up Reptile Room Podcast on a lot of those platforms. And in a couple of days, it will be even like more widespread once those other companies sort of approve it. But the idea is, right now there's sort of no ceiling to reptile podcast content, or just reptile content in general, right? Because it is such a blooming market right now. Like those of us who have been around for the last like 6, 7, 8 years have seen it's changed. The people who were there before us 30, 40 years, into it right now have definitely seen it change. So I don't think anybody can deny that it's growing and it's evolving, and there's like kind of a limitless potential for it right now. And so with that comes a lot of growth in knowledge and understanding. And so when we can put that out there and a lot of people can really just communicate and further sort of keeping everybody up with the pace of sort of where everything's at and what we understand as a whole, as far as species husbandry or techniques or technology, things like that. There's sort of like a never ending need to spread that information in as many ways as possible. And nowadays, like, because forums require you to sit down, not do anything else, cycle through a page, look through it, it's a lot more work intensive. Whereas passive consumable content like podcasts and videos and things like this, that's where everybody can put like a ton of focus without solely focusing on that, and still really absorb what's coming out of it. And so I think that's been the most beneficial tool to people coming into this market, this industry, this hobby, whatever you want to call it, and learning about it. It's like the best way to do it. So we started talking about it, and I wanted to do a podcast because you can just listen to it on anything, anywhere, anytime, driving, gym, at work,
cleaning snake shit.
Cleaning
Honestly.
snakes. Like, yeah, we all do that, right? So it just seemed like a no-brainer. And because I was already doing like a YouTube thing, which I wasn't a huge fan of, because I'm like kind of awkward when I get stale about like what I'm putting out visually in like a YouTube show. Like I definitely felt times where in Carpets and Coffee, the show that I did 50 episodes of, at times I was just kind of reiterating some things, and it just kind of felt stale. I didn't have a co-host. It was just me by myself. Whereas with
It's hard to drum it all from yourself and do it alone.
Yeah.
It's really hard, man.
Yeah. And to keep it interesting, even when people are telling you that they really appreciate what you're doing and it's wonderful content and they love it and they're getting so much out of it, and don't stop, keep doing, like, all the supportive comments are fantastic, but it still is different. Whereas doing something that you can put in a podcast format, just because of the unique way that you can consume it in so many different ways throughout your life, makes it kind of, the biggest audience, essentially makes it the most useful. And that's the whole point of even putting out content. It's not for me to go back and watch later on. It's so somebody else can get benefit out of, right? So, we all watch certain people's channels because it's either something that we're interested in, or we really like learning how they do something that we are interested in, or whatever it ends up being. So a podcast is no different than that. It's just in a different format. And so Andy and I have known each other for the last 5 years, and we talk about stuff all the time. He'll hit me up when he's got Doomrel stuff going on, because he knows what I've done with rainbows. And although they're completely on the other side of the world, he's just at least, hitting up a nearby friendly, familiar resource for information. We end up getting this continuous back and forth discussion all the time about different breeding and husbandry and some of the overlap we do and don't keep. And I love all the Pituophis he does, and I understand all the Rosy Boa stuff he does, but I don't keep that stuff. So I like keeping an ear on what he's, talking about, because it's really interested to stay in tune with it without having to keep it in here. And he has that same feeling with me, and some of my species. And so just over the years, we've talked so much back and forth. When I started thinking about, I need to transition from this YouTube thing into a podcast, I just kind of realized, like, okay, I need to have a co-host, somebody who I can talk to on a familiar level, like joke around with, have casual conversation with, just totally BS and let, stuff ride. But at the same time, also have good, inspirational, spirited conversation, or be able to handle interviews and professional type scenarios. So a lot of it seemed to just sort of speak to what Andy could bring to the table. And he's just, an insanely authentic guy. He has a wife, he has 3 kids. It's a very relatable situation to, the majority of reptile keepers, because there's folks like you and me who breed, and we go to shows and we vend and we put out a lot of that stuff. But that's kind of like the rare side of it. The majority of folks, go to their local pet shop, they keep a handful of animals at home, but then they still tap into all these veins of information around the industry, and they still keep they keep tabs on it, right? So, like, we can talk to breeders and we can exchange information that's relevant to breeders, but at the same time, there's this whole other massive ocean of people who are listening to this content, chomping at the bit for more. And they're definitely taking everything that breeders share between one another, because eventually a lot of them do get into breeding. But a lot of these folks just want to know how, you keep and so and all these other people with different, climates and areas keep, because it's just this never ending evolution of technique of how we do this, because it is such like an always like fluid and growing thing. So,
and we all want to talk about these subjects, and we don't necessarily have friends in your area to talk about them. So to listen to people talk about it is like nice to have, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, we're in a globalized world. We can reach people in anywhere along the world as long as there's a wireless signal, and it's really easy to share this information pretty much instantaneously. And everybody benefits from that, because essentially what it does is allows the folks who are innovating to also use that same timeliness and spreading their ideas and thoughts and information to what's working for them. And everybody benefits from that inevitably. So it's like a super exciting time to be working in reptiles, because like everything has been so Stone Age for the last like 30 years. Like it's just really in the last 10 years, thermostats have changed, enclosures have changed, lighting has changed, field research has changed, shipping companies have changed, the ability to heat your animals has changed, humidity. Like literally tell me something in the reptile hobby that hasn't changed dramatically in the last 10 years. Everything has, whether it be snakes, geckos, lizards, frogs, crocodiles, tarantulas, like across the board, innovation is skyrocketing right now.
I'll tell you what hasn't changed. As a bunch of ignorant, stubborn ass old reptile keepers that will not accept new science.
I mean, but if we can't control it, no, you're
I'll
right.
let that one breathe a little bit.
No, you're totally right. There are certainly
because
we can't paint a broad brush across it. We can't paint a broad brush that say everyone's converted into this new way of thinking. There are always folks who are hard to switch, right? And that is what it is. There's value to that.
There's
value. There's
what else did you call me?
To that.
Stone Age? You said, what did you say?
Yeah,
Stone Age?
Stone Age.
Stone Age. And receding hairlines. What else did you say tonight?
Oh, no, I didn't say that. That's me. See,
okay.
I got
the
McDonald's.
I said about both of you guys, but it was because I love you guys.
But the point is like there's more than one way to successfully keep a species, right?
Absolutely.
So some of the guys that are like stuck in the way they did things in the 70s doesn't mean they're wrong, but what's always fluid and changing is like taxonomy and stuff, and some people just don't want to accept it, and that's fine. Like taxonomy stuff is irrelevant. You're going to keep the snake how you keep it regardless of what you label it in a book or what you read it as. It doesn't matter. So like you can dispute that all you want, and that can be friendly and healthy and good, you know, dialogue, of course. You know, keeping things in the forefront of our analysis as we understand these animals more is always healthy. So, but when somebody comes up with like a proper or a better and improved way of keeping an animal or maintaining its climate or a schedule of feeding that seems to agree with its digestive abilities and things like that, to deny something that might impact an animal's well-being and health is, you know, that's where you need to ask questions. But otherwise, like we're in a super exciting time where everything's improving and growing and evolving and changing. So
I love
putting
smart
out
technology.
yeah, it's great. Like we can use so much of it. I've got cameras that watch things, and I put my thermometer probes in such a way where I can pull up my phone and look at the thermometer at the other side of my room and make sure the climate is okay. And I can do that while I'm at work just to make sure like I've estimated what I need the thermostat and everything to be for the day based on the climate outside, because it changes a lot and I'm still getting used to things out here. So yeah, exactly. Having that stuff is great. So it's just, you know, keeping up with the technology and stuff is sometimes kind of a lot, but there's more than one way to skin a cat, you know? So I think the whole idea of putting out a podcast is to connect with as many people as possible in that, like what I call the 95%. Because like if 5% of everyone who keeps reptiles are like the breeders and the companies and doing it, the other 95% are the people that have as few as one leopard gecko or one bearded dragon, or, you know, just a handful of like a basilisk, a green iguana, a ball python, you know, whatever it ends up being. And they just kind of go to their local mom and pop shop, but they still consume that information, that content, and the understanding to take care of their animals. And that is always evolving and always growing. So why not, you know, contribute more to that, to the betterment of everyone else?
When I retire, I want to be that local mom and pop shop.
That'd be sweet.
It's going to happen.
That'd be cool, man.
It's going to happen. Sure.
Yeah, I think the whole, I guess the hobby as a whole is going a lot more towards pet keeping, like as of late. And I think that mentality, it was what will actually eventually make this into a much better industry. Where I was talking to like James Lewis today. We were just talking on the phone, and it's like, maybe if people went and bought reptile supplies from reptile companies instead of buying a Sterilite tub and putting all these makeshift hides in there that they didn't actually put the money back into the reptile industry. Imagine these keepers that they're buying a snake, and you know, the snake's, you know, $75, man, but it's kind of like an aquarium fish where they're going to buy the tank, they're going to buy UVB light, they're going to buy the supplies, they're going to buy all the things that go into it. Not only is that a better situation for the animal, because hopefully we have education and supplies to do it properly. So it's like, it's better for the animal, and it gets, you know, things like UVB, which is something that doesn't happen now. And it's kind of debatable. And I understand that. I'm not saying everyone needs UVB for your animals. I certainly don't have it, but there's certainly is a lot of research pointing.
Yeah, that's the cool part, is we're going to eventually learn and understand that better.
So in order to, you should probably embrace the future now and make your life a lot easier, or at least know that that's where it's heading. And I think it will be a better place for the animals, but it will also bring so much more money into our industry. If we have breeders that go out there and instead of selling a snake and then telling the person to go, yeah, dude, just put it in this size rack, whatever, instead telling that person to get like an actual setup where they spend actual money on what they put an animal in. Because now people are just buying $1,200 animals and putting them in $5 tubs.
Right.
Why don't we flip that shit on its head? Because, I mean, why don't we all that's doing is giving it to another guy who thinks he's going to get rich in reptiles, which really isn't benefiting the hobby at all.
Right. Look into doing naturalistic setups. Look into
naturalistic is fun.
It's funny that you mentioned UVB. I actually just got a text from the sales manager at a local reptile shop here. Could I have ordered some UVB bulbs from Amazon or from some other place that could sell me something wholesale? Yeah. He just texted me, and said, "Hey, Andy, your UVB bulbs are in. Did I pay a few bucks extra?" Yeah. It's a local mom and pop shop. But I think as a community, we need to do a better job to support those specialized stores up in Sacramento. GX3, Grant, good example.
And they're popping up. There's actually more of them, which is crazy because pet stores are going down, but like those specialty reptile stores are doing great, which is awesome.
Specialty shops, go support them.
Yes,
go
100%.
spend that extra. If it's going to cost you $10 extra for one visit, guess in terms of monetary value, how much more value you'll get as a consumer going in. Let's say a year down the road, something's going wrong with your particular animal, and you go in to talk to that specialist shop where they actually have employees that know what they're talking about and that can help you through a situation. Can you do that on Amazon? No, you can't. Spend the extra dollars, go in there, buy your crickets, go in there and buy your rodents if you need to, whatever you need to do, and spend that money, invest it so that in the future, when you need that help, you have them there as a resource for you. I don't know. I think that we can do a better job collectively as a hobby, spending money with people that are specializing in the animals that we keep and in the care that we're keeping. We all make mistakes. I'm not going to go into it publicly, but just recently, Riley and I had been going back and forth over this last few days. Man, yay or nay?
It's you, man. It's you. I got you.
So we just lost our fuck, dude. I did not want to get into this. This is heavy.
Just go straight to it, sharp to the point, and then say what you gotta say, and then
sharp and to the point. So we lost our Savannah Olivia 3 days ago, and we were doing everything to the point where we thought we were doing it right. So we're sitting back as keepers, and I say we because it's my family. We all collectively are keepers as a family. It's a family of 5 of us, and she was loved. She was a family member. She was not just a pet, but she was also an educational animal. She definitely took a huge decline. We're trying to go back and trying to figure out things, but we look back and I'm starting to put pieces together. I'm like, okay, what could it have been? Was it UVB? Was it diet? Was it what part of husbandry? And I think we need to collectively as a hobby, just make sure that we're on it as keepers. Where did I fail as a keeper? Whether it was something natural, whether it was something that was out of our control, we don't know. But I think it's important to always look, whether we have 1 animal or 100 animals, are we doing what we need to do? It's exactly like Joe said. Look at it like a pet perspective. It's your pet. It's part of your family. Are you giving it what it needs? And I think I failed her in many ways. I think we all collectively did. And that's a super tough thing to accept. So anyway,
I'm gonna follow up with that and say, Andy's
I can't believe I can't believe
everyone who's
that
listening
blizzard.
and watching
Shit.
and going to hear that Andy's full of shit. They didn't fuck up. They didn't fail that animal. They didn't do anything wrong with husbandry. That's the most
something
lizard keeper ever.
I feel like we did.
It is what it is. It is what it is. That animal had cycled for you last year, produced infertile eggs. So what she was doing was she was going through cycles, And as soon as an animal starts hitting maturity level like that, especially with a shelled egg producing species of reptile, there's a whole host of complications that can come from that.
And they're very, very notorious for getting impacted, right?
Yeah, they certainly can be, or they just, because they haven't been bred readily in captivity, we just don't understand them that well. Because there's
my
just
wife
a cheap
is
import.
devastated. That was her baby, and one of the, I'm getting hit up with like crazy notifications on Facebook right now.
Turn it off.
Yeah, seriously, I don't know how to. She was an incredible monitor, even from the point of, my wife had her from the point that she was a captive hatched. Had her from around 2 to 3 months old and up to just a few days ago. Definitely loved. I think there's a few points where I feel that we definitely could have done better. So looking back at her care, and I think that we should always do that. Look at your care. Can you do better? If you can, accept it. I have to accept it as a keeper. I do think that there's certain parameters of her care where I think I failed her. I need to accept that. And so whatever it is, whatever choice we make moving forward as keepers, we need to improve on that. I think UVB was one of those. I'm glad you mentioned UVB. I just got that text that said, hey, your brand new bulbs are in. Should have probably got those brand new bulbs a couple months ago.
Yeah, but it wouldn't.
I don't think
trust me, it wouldn't.
I don't
it
think
would
it
not.
was UVB,
it would not.
but
No, it would not do something so dramatic. Trust me, man.
Yeah, I know, but still,
when you are working with a biological entity, there are too many factors at play for you to just, even with full necropsy, blood panels, tissue analysis, sending things out for PCR, like it doesn't matter. You can get zero answers doing every single possible biological test there is out there, and your animal just passed away and you got nothing. And that's how it goes. Sometimes that is how it goes.
I don't know.
I've experienced that plenty.
That's deep. Sorry, Joe.
Well, no, I know exactly.
We've all been there in one way or another, and it's like with just not knowing what's going on. That's so common in reptiles, and it's like the worst part. It's like when I first started keeping, I went out and I bought a bunch of snakes, and when I first got the idea to breed, and then I picked up a bunch of ball pythons, did all that thing, and then just
Royals.
I don't want Nipper getting on.
Where are we? What continent are we on?
Nipper is going to go out and do something very nefarious if we say that 4-letter B starting word again, referring to Python regions.
You mean that thing that looks like a ball in your hand, that snake?
Royals.
He's going to kill some...
You mean you're basing the common name off of this fake myth that some Egyptian princess wore it? That's not even real, man. That's not even a real thing. It's a ball python. It's in a little ball.
He's going to kill the... If we say it, we can't. It's the hook. We gotta watch out. Nipper, sorry. Nipper.
How does Nipper have this much impact on podcasts throughout so this? Okay,
stop.
Sorry.
He's gonna go like
sorry,
Freddy vs. Jason on them.
All right, you guys can listen to the NPR episode if you don't know the reference.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Joe. That's my fault.
So yeah. Podcast relatable, Andy.
Well, no, but I was saying, it happens.
Boom, boom.
It happens to the best of them, and it happened to me. It went through like my whole first collection. I lost like half of my animals, and I went through all the treating them and then watching them die one by one, and then all being treated with different things, all while with a vet doing all of this and trying to figure this out and doing, necropsies on everyone that died. And seeing that there was obviously some type of internal impact, but it didn't really make sense with what they knew at the time. And I'm guessing, it's probably something like nidovirus or something that happened. But yeah, I think that that's probably much more common that things happen and we don't have the understanding to come to a conclusion at the time.
I mean, to go back to about 4 beers ago when we were talking about control of things, I mean, that really, bless you. So,
whoopsies. What about 4 beers?
3, maybe 2 beers ago. I mean, yeah, we want to try to control as much, and when we have a collection, we want to try to control a wild animal, whether we have it in an enclosure or in a tub. I think we touched about this a little bit in our second episode of the podcast in terms of tubs versus cages, and Riley's standing up.
Squirrel?
Very good. Like
the Darwins were.
Are you sponsored or something? Like that was like a really good placement of that beer. Wow. But I think that we generally try to control as much as we can when it comes to our collection, and to our detriment or to our benefit. That's something to be said for. I think at the end of our keeping experience. I think looking back, I think if we can provide what we would quote unquote be our minimum requirements and see how our animals behavior is based on those requirements, and what are we basing on those requirements on? Typically, it's going to be based on data that we've collected from people that have been out in the field. People that have gone out there and studied those animals, and we're going to try to keep them based on that.
This is where a lot of like value reverts back to mentorships. Like, yes, we can consume information from all over the world digitally, like get it and get good information, right? But I mean, experience is the best teacher. Mean, that saying is as old as the dirt we're all walking on, right? So, and it's very true. I mean, anybody who works with these animals long enough, you can read as many books and talk to as many people as you want, but until you go through the motions, like it doesn't sink in until that point. And it's just really interesting because there's a lot of information out there, but yeah, you really gotta put the time in and really figure it out and dial your animals in.
Well, I think one of the things that's tough to admit to is, so if I look back at say 15 years ago, most of the people that were keeping savanna monitors at the time were thinking that we need to keep them like it's an African desert. Most of the time you were getting an animal that was a wild caught animal or a captive hatched animal, and you were keeping it like it was in the desert. You were basically dehydrating it from the inside out. Now you have savanna keepers that are basing their keeping methods based off of actual biologists out in the field that are saying, no, these animals are spending time inside of a burrow that's 70-80% humidity. They're coming out at the peak basking time. They basked for a little bit of time, and they're going back into their hide for the rest of the day, and then towards
where
the later
humidity
part
is
of the day,
higher because of microclimates.
Exactly. That's not something that, I mean, the reason why it's so devastating this time around for us as a keeper is because we had that more accurate information, and yet we still, sorry, Riley, and to a point, I feel like we still have failed her. Back 15 years ago when I first had, a savanna, we didn't know any better.
So, you're very humble with it, and like you're dead on. Like you really are dead on. And I really would probably feel exactly the same way if the same thing had happened to me. That being said, you really, everybody who's keeping these animals needs to always keep in mind that there's always that little sliver of that uncontrollable biology where these animals are going to do what they're going to do. And you can provide an animal the optimum conditions, and things just go south sometimes. Like, a really great example of that is when you're like trying to rear frogs or like breed frogs, because they go from this really delicate, super permeable egg stage that's like just tiny little thing.
Yeah.
And you can let the parents do what they're going to do, because some of them have it ingrained into their DNA so well that they lay the eggs in the best spot, and it's right where the moisture falls the most, and those eggs are going to stay hydrated. And then they know how to ferry them to a pool of water where they're tadpoles and they're ready. And then they just kind of know. But you can literally do the best job possible doing water changes on a daily basis, cleaning that little body of water, the little cup those babies are in, and adding the right amount of like natural algae versus artificial algae wafers and all these things. Like, you can go crazy with it.
Yeah, you can go nuts.
And these animals will still like metamorphosize into like a froglet with spindle leg or extra limbs or just some deformities. And you could have been doing all the water quality testing on the water that went into that animal's environment and made sure the parameters are right with pH and temperature and ammonia and nitrites and nitrates and like the chlorine values. You can literally do all of that perfectly. And those animals will still just like every once in a while, doesn't matter what you do, they're just like, nope, I grew a 6 limb out of my eyeball and I ate my sibling and ruptured my stomach and died. And that's just what it is.
I have one Azurius froglet out of 12 in the last year and a half that's actually eating and has survived. So yeah, dart frogs, big props to the dart frog breeders. So when you want to pay a little extra for a captive bred dart frog, pay the damn
those
money.
poor guys don't get anything.
Dude, it's so worth it.
I'm serious. Like,
if you go to look back, Andy's dead on.
If I look back and I look at the trio that I purchased from JL Exotics, I probably should have paid triple for that amount, because of the amount of experience and wisdom and knowledge that it took to produce that successful trio. I should have paid triple as a hobbyist. And looking at what I've produced now for my dart frogs now, to have one froglet every egg for the last year. I'm thinking, what is it? What month are we in? December. Yeah. It's
Christmas Eve now on the East Coast.
Be patient. Numbers are secondary in my mind. So basically,
1, 2, 3,
no entiendo inglés.
4, 5, 6. Okay.
12. All right. So basically, for about the last
20
year,
años, pato.
Somebody that I actually want to get on our podcast. Yeah, I'm looking at you, try to hide, dick. Everybody, in case you don't know, Riley, he's hiding. I don't know what he could possibly be doing. Dart frogs are
releasing ghosts.
Such an incredible reference to success, because froglets are such an they're any dart frog. I only have experience with Azurius, so Tinctorius specifically.
Those are hard to breed, by the way.
One froglet. Well,
I've not succeeded
breeding,
with them.
Getting the eggs to make it to a tadpole stage, and from everything that I've been able to determine is that it has a lot to do with the supplements that they're getting, the food that they're getting. So I've had to adjust the. Oh man, how the hell did we get to freaking dart frogs? Anyway,
I don't smoke jewels. No.
Whatever.
Hell no. No, dart frogs. We're just talking about
dart
like
frogs are
husbandry
amazing.
stuff. Just being a master of husbandry. Yeah. The Azureus.
I was gonna let you go. I liked where that was going.
Okay.
No,
right,
it's awesome. No, please, Andy, keep going because Azureus are hard, man. I've bred a few different species, and I have not ever gotten anything over a froglet this big to survive. I've gotten tadpoles to morph out, and then they just tank.
Okay,
and it's
right
all
now,
about gut loading, in my opinion.
Yes. Okay, so Travis Stutchman from TCS Dart Frogs, an incredibly humble dart frog breeder. He's an awesome dude. Seriously, anybody that doesn't know him, he probably is more on Facebook, I think, than anything else. I have no idea what you just showed me, Riley, but I'm guessing it was of an illegal substance, and that offends me deeply to my soul. I'm going to be going into, whatever. Anyways.
Satan.
So, yeah, bad. Why am I friends with you? God. Wait. I like it when you do that. Okay. So Travis was telling me, I was talking to him. I was trying to explain to him that all of the eggs for the last year that I've got have not made it to the point of actually getting to a tadpole. So they haven't. I'm thinking of the word. Riley, help me out. This is where you come in.
Metamorphosized. Metamorphosis.
Yeah, both of you get credit for that.
Morphed.
Gold star for both.
Morphed.
Of you. Yeah,
morphed would make more sense. You win the ultimate.
That's the offhand. For anybody, that's the shorthand, but you're right.
So for anybody that doesn't know, I homeschool. I don't homeschool. My wife homeschools our children. So, okay.
This is funny.
So, anyway, I have not been able to get my. Okay.
I can't move down in the water. They're like in the water basin while like bubbles are going through and just pulling it.
Actually, I might try that because my tadpoles might actually survive with a little bit of better water at that point.
Just leave the water.
They'll be very hungry.
They get stagnant and let algae grow.
They might actually be better. That's a good
dude.
point.
Watch them like grow hella fat and hella fast.
Oh, who knew that bong water was actually really good for your tadpoles?
It smells almost as bad as pond water.
My almond leaves that I use, trying to circle it back. It wasn't that at all. Travis that I was talking to TCS Dart Frogs, he was talking about actually gut loading and supplementing the prey items, and he felt that I don't want to mention specifically the products yet because I haven't been able to prove one way or the other which is which, but the products that I have been using probably for the last year, I did switch. Since that switch, I have yet to produce any viable tadpoles. The eggs have not made it past. They're fertilized.
What are you feeding? What are you feeding your adults?
I produce all of my own fruit flies. I do my own cultures. I have my own media that I use, and it's a combination of that was super fast, Joe.
Do you ever mix in new blood of fruit flies in there? Is one question, and then the other question is, do you ever supplement like pinheads into their diet at all, and how many species of fruit flies do you utilize?
So typically about every 4 to 6 months, I try to get in a new 2 cultures roughly of fruit flies in. It's the dusting.
That's good.
So it's specifically the dusting supplement that goes
What do you use?
We're not supposed to get into like.
So anyway, the reason I asked is because this is something that I work very closely with at work, and because I do 3 different species of mantellas and 5 different species of dart frogs, I see the varying degrees of success and influence certain species of fruit flies and
use
dusting things. So what I currently do is we culture two groups of fruit flies. We do Hydei and melanogasters. We do about 3 times as many melanogasters as we do Hydei, and we're in the process of tinkering with different media. We had a company that has since gone out of business that would put together 2 different recipes essentially designed for these 2 different species of fruit fly, and both of these species would produce very well, and they went out of business when it was my time to resupply our stocks. So I went with the next best thing I could find, and it was great for the melanogasters, but the Hydei's have completely suffered, and they're a little bit bigger and winged. They don't necessarily learn to fly unless you don't ever outcross their genetics. Eventually something will overlap, and these animals will learn to fly again because they're supposed to be flightless. So it is good to inject new blood into your cultures of fruit flies because you're essentially breeding more and more on top of each other. And for a certain number of generations, it's fine. So we're currently experiencing challenges with that, and in the process making our own recipe with like potato flakes and cinnamon and naturalized yeast and a few different things to see if we can't come up with something nicer. But we are also regularly supplementing into their diet a couple days a week pinhead crickets, and every day everything is dusted with, I think it's a Zoomed calcium with D3, and then once a week we use a Repashy vitamin A supplement. And the vitamin A supplement it seems to have the most impact with the dart frogs. So Andy, what I was just saying is we do Zoomed calcium with D3 6 days a week with our dart frogs, and because the other frogs only eat, they're fantastic. And then once a week, we use a Repashy vitamin A powder. It's this green powder. And so all of our amphibians in the house feed on the day the vitamin A gets fed out, and at least one more with the calcium and D3 supplement across the species. The dart frogs, I have to keep track of their egg production because it's just off the charts.
Yeah.
Mantellas and dart frogs. It's unreal. Unreal.
I'm getting eggs pretty much. So I cycle my dart frogs through a rainy season and a non-rainy season. I only have a trio of breeding Azureus. So I cycle them through a rainy season, and then I'm supplementing accordingly. Just out of curiosity, are you providing UVB, natural UVB?
Yeah, but very small amounts.
Yeah, so same here, very small amounts as well. And just from what I was understanding from Travis, was that specifically the supplement used, that it could have a very negative effect on the actual egg production, and just not being a strong egg, or not being viable in general. And since I switched supplements, I have yet to produce a viable tadpole. So I'm going to be switching over to the Repashy with the D3, probably coming up on February. They're just finishing up right now on what would be their breeding season. So then I'm going to switch them out, allow them an opportunity to kind of recover, get some new bloodlines into the food, and probably switch out my media to include more bee pollen. I'm a big proponent for bee pollen. For anybody that uses gut loading on, whether it be their monitors, bearded drag, anything that eats insects, if you gut load with bee pollen, it's incredible. I find anyway. Whatever. I don't want to get on that soapbox at 2:24 into this conversation. Joe's like,
curious.
Dude, I'm ready to go to bed.
I didn't notice we were over 2 hours until like a couple minutes ago.
Sorry, man. I apologize.
No, you're good. If Melissa was here, she would have shut us down like an hour ago. So open season, boys.
I love listening to Melissa's feedback to you and kind of just playing that just kind of.
Do you know how hard I'm like?
I love it. Honestly, because
like,
I'm a
don't do that
man,
during the show, man.
I think it's amazing.
I think someone messaged us and said that they're worried about our relationship.
Oh,
we've had multiple people.
Whose relationship?
Ours, because
who?
People don't.
You and Melissa?
Yeah, people don't realize that we fight on the show. But like,
yeah. I think it's what it is. Okay, so I don't personally worry about you and Melissa. I think the relationship.
Well, I'm not worried about that. I don't give a shit what anyone thinks. I just think it's funny that people think that.
And you shouldn't worry about what anybody else thinks about your relationship with Melissa, because she's the woman that you fell in love with for a reason. You know what I mean?
I'm about to fucking cry, Andy. Why?
It's because you miss her.
Thanks, dude. That's deep, dude.
You miss her.
Yeah. Pick up for 4 days.
Oh, I've
had to eat Chipotle twice.
I can't cook for myself. I gotta go Grubhub. Okay.
Don't tell her. If she won't listen to this. Don't worry. You can say anything.
No, she won't listen. But yeah. Seriously, people message you worrying about your relationship with Melissa?
Yeah.
Really? Just because you guys kind of bicker back and forth? I think that's a really cool thing about your podcast, though, is that the fact that my wife would hell no, she would not sit next to me to do a podcast show about reptiles. Like, she loves reptiles, but she loves reptiles with me in private. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not everyone wants to do something like it doesn't. There's a reason why it's not difficult to do. And there's only 6 reptile podcasts, and that's a lot compared to, what it was just a few years ago. But it's because it's a little scary to get here and be vulnerable and act like idiots like we have for 2 hours and 30 minutes. Most people aren't comfortable.
You calling me an idiot, first of all.
Sorry, just one idiot.
Yeah, that one over there on the top, that corner right there. That one. Yeah, you.
But it's
I'm kidding.
I don't think.
Sorry.
And just people don't realize that, or it's not people don't realize. I don't know the fuck I'm saying, man. Riley's looking at his phone really weird.
Finish the thought.
I'm old and blind. Leave me alone.
I'm glad
that squinting
Riley
hell
video podcast, because I don't think this would work if we did video podcasts. There's no way.
Maybe. It's difficult to try to not look dumb all the time.
Yeah, Andy. The one thing that really made Carpets and Coffee challenging. Not honestly, it was on me to prepare, thinking about what I was going to bring up, but I could sort of pander through a topic or meander into tangents and things like that. But the problem is, if you are sitting in front of a camera, you're by yourself, and you have nothing to talk about, no bueno. No. So, it got challenging, because one of the things with looping through a year is if you're talking about reptiles in particular, you're inevitably going to be talking about seasonalities and behaviors and differences in feeding and breeding and this
and what's going on right now.
Yeah, and if it's just your collection all the time, it's not going to be that different. So if you're by yourself, it's crazy.
And if you're keeping multiple species.
Yeah, exactly. And so, having somebody else to talk it through with you is fantastic. And if you can put that out such a way that
but I don't like talking to you.
Awesome. Me?
So you guys gonna do interviews and stuff like that?
Absolutely.
You like that transition back into that podcast conversation we had about an hour and a half ago?
You're a pro.
Segue
We
like
did it.
Pro.
Full circle, guys.
Yeah. So Andy, because he lives in this really nice part of the Bay Area, and he has access to some of the Bay Area herpers and some of those guys up there. He's known a lot of those guys for a long time.
Yep.
No pressure or commitments to him or potential guests or anything, but he knows a different body of people than I do in that area. We have a lot of overlap, but ultimately we both can bring a lot to this table as far as people we know. And there's nothing wrong with interviewing people who've been on other shows before, because ultimately, we're coming behind you guys and all these other podcasts that have interviewed a lot of these same people that we intend to as well, which is just fine. But yeah, we do want to have like Dan Maliri and a lot of big breeders and things, but because Andy is such like a relatable personality as far as that 95% of people, and I'm not trying to put Andy on the spot. I'm not trying to use him or anything like that. I don't want people to get it the wrong way. It does. I think about it all the time, which is why I hesitate when I bring it up. But it's real, dude. Like that's part of my inspiration, which is why I hit you up to do this with me. I didn't reach out to anybody else.
Yeah, I feel that.
And I hadn't even planned on reaching out to anybody else. I hadn't thought about if Andy says no, or he doesn't have the free time or whatever, and he has, I would never take offense to it if I offered somebody hey man, will you do this with me? And they're like, oh man, I got a family or this and that. Dude, by all means, that's your priority. And I would never take offense to it. But I hadn't even thought about it. What if Andy says no? And who else, could I have this good conversation with? And I'm not saying there isn't other folks that I get along with. There's tons of great people out there. There's tons of great people that should be doing podcasts. If you're listening to this and you love talking reptiles and you're a well-spoken person, why not try it? You really should. It's cool. That being said, when I was thinking about doing this podcast, I was like, well, I have to have a co-host. Who would I bring on with me? And for 4 to 6 hours at work, I was just kind of thinking about it while I was doing my thing. And right at the end of the shift, you hit me up. And I was like, that's it. That's it. That's who I need to hit up.
That's because I'm annoying as shit. That's why.
It hit me in the face like a ton of bricks. No, it was perfect. It was perfect.
That's awesome.
It was perfect, dude. It was great. I was like, well, that makes sense. We talk all the time. We have good, respectful banter back and forth. Quite often, you
did you say respectful?
Yeah, well, I mean, you're respectful. You have a nice banter for the political side of things, and you say nice things about me and my mistakes.
No, I don't.
No, you don't.
People don't even know about our PMs.
You never will. I'm not running for president. That's for damn sure.
He's feeding you with a full, just a bunch of lies.
Well, even from the group message, just in the last 24 hours, 48 hours, I don't think you guys have said anything nice to each other.
Hell no. Why the hell would I say something nice about it?
Dude, the whole time I just had a mouthful of beer. I almost spewed all over the place.
I love this guy, man. Hey, you know what, Riley? Honestly, I appreciate that. I seriously do. No, I mean it. I really do.
Yeah,
you know what's funny is that I'll mention to my wife or I'll mention to my kids, that I'm about to get online. Well, tonight, for example, Joe, just mentioning to them, hey, by the way, I'm going to do a little promotional piece connect with another podcast.
It will just be
And
5
my
hours
family,
of a couple
knowing
guys.
Riley. And you know what? Thankfully, that's what I'm into, is that she was like, okay, have a good time, have fun. But that's what I knew I was marrying into. Again, this goes back, Joe, to our very
transparency,
date, right?
Yeah,
that's
we're saving people's
man.
lives right now.
Absolutely. First things first. Do you like reptiles? Yes or no? If she says or he says, ew, bounce. Okay? That's wisdom from an old, balding, drunk guy. All right?
If she's at a reptile show and she's talking to you just for your snakes, also questionable, also scary, also proceed with caution.
Figure it out the next morning.
Yeah, that's a very good point. That's possibly another episode, actually, just on that alone.
That's a real thing. It's rare and elusive.
After the wedding ring, it's happened to me after the wedding ring. Like, oh, I love you a lot, but let's talk about these snakes over here. Yeah.
What are you doing, Riley?
All right, folks.
Playing with snakes.
What he's doing. I don't even know what I'm doing. Okay. Why are you asking what we're doing? Anyway. What were you saying, Riley? Something positive. I think
everyone's watching.
Yeah. We're waiting for you.
Oh, don't do it.
I mean, what's it going to do?
I think he froze. Oh, what is he bringing out? Oh, ATB? No, don't do that.
Your face is right there, Riley.
Riley, don't do that. He's bringing out his solid yellow ATB.
I have 3 of them, Andy. This one started orange.
You should have.
She didn't bite me. What the fuck?
Because she loves you. You should have taken that male.
No, this animal hates me. Oh, here we go.
Beautiful. So, folks,
how many of those animals do you have?
What?
Yeah. Go ahead, Andy. You're doing good.
No, so
I like
I was
where
just
you're going
mention,
with this voiceover.
So, while Riley
Hey, Andy, do you still have your bicolor? Do you want one?
Okay. Let's
not hey.
Oh, there we go. Yes.
Hey, Andy.
Okay. Again, if people get discouraged by the natural defensiveness of a snake. Okay, you're handling.
Ow! You son of a bitch.
Perfectly natural. This snake in particular is such an amazing species to keep.
Stop!
And people get so discouraged.
She just bit me 3 times.
That's probably because you deserve it, but that's beside the point.
That's probably because I'm touching her butt. I didn't ask. I didn't ask nicely.
No, that happens.
Yeah, most women will bite you if you touch her.
Whoa! Oh, I saw it.
Yes, now the title of the podcast is Riley Bitten by Monster Boa.
Stop it.
Touching
all caps.
Stop. Oh, you're going to bite me right in the webbing of like my thumb and my index. That's just rude.
So I'm also trying to read the comments and do like a little bit of a voiceover. But in terms of the Reptile Room podcast that Riley and I are recently launching, January 1st being the first scheduled episode to be aired. Everybody can check it out at Reptile Room Podcast. I'm going to have that going here probably within the next couple of days. Currently, our trailer episode is going at reptileroompodcast.simplecast.com. You can find us on Instagram and on Facebook at dude, I was about to promote myself. How horrible is that?
I'm just looking at Riley.
So, yeah, he got,
It's musk. It's horrible.
That's not. You know what, Joe? This guy, he's a pansy. You deal with colubrids, so you know.
Beat on by like Puerto Rican boas and Amazon.
Oh yeah, those dudes
stop complaining. That is That is nothing.
Yeah, get slimed by a Sanzinian and a Puerto Rican boa in the same day, and then have to go like digging into a koi pond.
Are you millennial?
Grabbing. I'm an
old guy, so I can say it without offending anybody.
Yeah, shut up.
That means yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, whoever defined the generational categories for that could have taken a few years off that. Stop biting me. Let go of the damn perch. Crazy.
Okay.
Ass.
Reptile Room Podcast on Instagram and Facebook for everybody that's wondering. It's me and Riley, which could amount to a bunch of just who knows
poo-poo.
Riley doesn't give a shit about your plug right now.
I do. It's my favorite thing. I love this podcast. I'm super stoked for it. It's like the most exciting thing I have going on, next to like getting alligators and being like peed on by this thing.
And bit.
Whatever. Stop venomous.
So do we have anything exciting going for Port City Pythons? Actually, you know what though? Joe, you've got some pretty awesome things that I've been listening to on your podcast about your Floridana. Or
corn snakes.
Corn snakes are another one for me that I'm just coming back to.
How to breed. Oh, Riley.
So I'm going
to
need to.
You almost was, that almost was right on the nose.
Hey, I told you, stop smelling your armpits.
Just got like peed on and bit in the face. It smells so bad.
Did you get bit in the face?
No, she
it definitely got very close to your nose.
She got pretty close.
My nose.
So for anybody that doesn't want Amazon tree boas, you could always hit me up about Dumeral's boas that I won't release because I'm holding them all back. Is she musking you?
No.
She's beautiful, by the way. So for anybody that again, going back to Amazon tree boas, I go back to Amazon tree boas all the way back to the old forum days before Facebook.
Boop.
Oh no, you did! I'm about to disown your ass right now.
Don't boop the snoot, people.
Did that you was just a proper freaking boop that shit?
Yeah, she missed, which was the best part.
Okay. Joe, I was about to like replace him right now. I don't know for what, but he just said.
The worst part is that she's like peed on me.
Everybody pees on you, bud.
Ow.
In case people are wondering, yeah, me and Riley.
We're gonna get in trouble here.
I think we are, man. I think we are.
Stop it,
Riley.
Hey, Joe, you don't have to work tomorrow, right?
Snake handling. Well, I do, but I also have to drive to New York because
I wanted to handle her.
That's where my family is. Like, so yeah, we're going up to New York in the morning.
Shit, man. That's dedication.
I guess. Yeah, I mean, this is fun.
Yeah, no, it's good times, man. I appreciate. Honestly, Drew, I appreciate the fact that you and I have been friends online for a while, but yet we haven't really quite interacted, and that's honestly a testament to who I am as a person. I don't interact with people. I don't.
Me either.
I don't.
Unless I ask them to be on the podcast.
I just have a tough time just putting myself out there. Typically pretty reserved and just I'm just cautious about trying to put myself out there just because I end up getting friends like Riley, which see through my bullshit.
Well, I think it also comes to a testament because like I'm kind of the same way, but it's like the friends who are my friends are usually those people who reach out and stay in contact with you and know that you're kind of that way, and they understand when you're not the most responsive because that's me basically. So it's like, I don't really. It's not because I don't want to talk to people, but I just generally don't talk to people. That's just not my personality.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that we apparently talk on podcasts now, but
you know what though?
It's a weird thing. It's like
great,
different.
No, it's a great way for us to have connected. I think for the first time, I really do think that this is just such a great way for us to have been able to meet each other, one, visibly, not just audibly. I don't know what Riley's doing right now, man, but fucking dude, he's
my hand is
my wife
bleeding all over the place.
Hold on, come here. This is my gorgeous wife,
Lizzie. What's up?
She just got home from.
Hey, everyone, go follow. What is it? Baked Sweetly by Lizzie.
Yeah, Baked Sweetly by Lizzie.
Yeah,
she's a professional baker. And,
dude, that's an understatement. That is an understatement. She is a wizard dessert baker. She's amazing.
Love you, baby.
Yeah, she's amazing.
Yeah, she's incredible, for real. I mean, in terms of talent, yeah, she's unbelievable. She's got some pretty cool stuff. Travis Johnson from Living Legos Reptiles got a birthday cake from her a few years ago, and he still talks about it. It was at one of the Carpet Fest, or I don't know what the hell it was for, but it was for his birthday. Anyways, she just got home from working. She works in pharmacy too, but what the hell were we talking about? My gorgeous wife
we were on
walked
in
and just, I don't know, man. She distracted the shit out of me. I love that woman. Damn.
Well, we were talking about the show, and then just
transitioning
into
the fact that
you're
we
don't
like each other, we don't get along, and we have a podcast somehow.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's like you were talking about like connecting with people, and you're just like you're at episode 0 pretty much. It's like you can do this 200 times. We've done this 125 some amount of times. It's like, and that many people we've got to talk to for 2 hours, which is just crazy.
246, almost at 247.
Well, not everyone gets 246, 247. All right, this is pretty big time.
Well, that's Riley's fault. Well, if it's a negative thing, it's Riley's fault. If it's positive, it's because I'm awesome.
I think we may have gone. I've gone 3 hours with Riley before.
Yeah, I bet, man. I bet.
But not much of a talkative guy these days, so.
Man.
It's funny. We've gone 3 hours before, but
what's cool?
He's just making faces.
Really though, Joe, is that the fact that we've been friends on Facebook though, but we've never actually like gone out of our way to connect with each other. And I think that a lot of our social media presence, generally speaking, as reptile keepers, I have an easier time connecting with somebody that has reptiles than I do even with my own friends and family. How sad is that? Think about it.
Nothing.
I mean, we cut out Riley.
Dude, I was cracking up, dude.
Either I said something really extraordinarily funny.
I'm trying to pay attention to you, but
he's done. Poor Joe. Joe's like, dude, I'm done. I'm ready for work tomorrow. Hey, I'm not the host, dude. You're the host. You're the one that's supposed to cut us out, dude. I'll just keep drinking. So I'll keep drinking and you keep talking.
Riley, you want to put anything else out there?
I was just reading some of the comments.
Yeah.
I've been ignoring the comments because I can't read anymore. After 5 beers, I go back to Spanish.
You go back to default setting?
Boom. Default setting. Holy shit. That's some like old school gaming shit right there. I love it. Default reinstall. Oh my goodness. Okay. Simply Serpents, Sarah's inspiration, and Jason Raup. If I said that wrong, just blame it on my country.
Fair.
Mike.
What were we talking about?
You tell me.
So, okay, what we're gonna do is we're gonna hit this like rewind dial. We're gonna go back to the podcast today.
At like the 30-minute mark.
Today, Andy was able to launch our little 17-minute, sort of like an intro, get to know us, audio clip thing. Like we talked about doing it, and we're just like, yeah, screw it, we'll just do it. So we did that. We have episode 1 and 2 recorded. 1 has been like edited and cut down and ready to go. Episode 2 is just right about there. Andy, no one can read that.
The fact that I was trying to get it. I was trying to get the mic to get the visual. That's a problem.
But
go ahead. Go back.
Back to what's important.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, the Reptile Room Podcast episode 1 will be up, and by the first of the new year, January 1st.
That's right.
We will have the RSS feed already squared away on all the platforms, everything like that. Part of the benefit of putting out that little promo little episode.
Do you know who your first guest is?
Not yet. What we want to do is we want to just make sure.
I think so.
I mean, we've got to.
I think so.
Well, so we're going to talk about this
so.
afterwards, but we have a huge
our list is extensive.
Yeah, as far as like a show that's just kind of getting off the ground, we've got a lot of folks that.
Who's your dream? Who's the real reach?
Well, hey Joe, talk to me sexy like, and I might think that you're the dream.
Hey baby.
Melissa, don't get jealous. It's not my fault.
Damn, no, Andy.
Riley.
Hey,
whoa. Hey, Joe, I'm married, bro.
Sorry, dude. It just comes out in me.
Hey.
I just can't. When I see a good-looking man with a shiny, cute head.
Baby. Gollum. Okay, Riley. Guess.
We were on to something.
We were on to something, and then at some point, Joe totally took it off to some other place that I don't go that way. I'm about to go to conventional. No, I don't know.
Hey, Riley.
He wasn't even listening. He
wasn't
even listening.
I
This
can
fucking
hear you.
dick.
I couldn't hear
This dick
you.
wasn't even
I
listening.
Can hear you. No, I heard you.
Wow.
Okay. I can hear you.
Who's the first guest? That's a great question. Joe.
We have a couple of folks that have graciously said, "Oh, that's exciting to hear you're starting a new podcast. If you ever need guests, come on. I'd be happy to talk.
Come on.
So,
Come on.
You want me?
Yeah, do it. Make it happen right now. Boom. Just say it and make it happen. That forces me.
There you go.
Yeah, Andy.
Yeah.
I want our first guest.
Oh shit!
In 2020.
Oh, that's about to.
Once we are ready,
I'm about to get excited.
To be Dan Miller of DM Exotics.
Hell yeah!
Oh yeah!
There's a reason behind that. There's many reasons behind that. I mean, Dan is a stand-up
Dan
guy.
is an awesome stand-up dude. Like
he is
stand-up
guy, hands down. You can't argue that. It doesn't matter what your experience is with him. You can't argue that. He's a nice guy. I've got
how many guys in this hobby go out of their way to when you're going to meet them at the show or when you're going to reach out to them online and purchase an animal from him? How many guys like him are going to ensure that the animal that you receive is good to go?
Zero.
Yeah. I mean, nobody does it to his level in my experience.
Nobody does it.
And the reason why I always have such unflinching confidence in him is because I picked up my animals from him over the years at shows in the area when I lived in Central and Southern California. But beyond that, he's always delivered on quality and just kind of making sure everything's ready to go. And these animals have never been anything but perfect from the moment I've acquired them, whether they're like fresh hatchlings from the farms over in Indo and brought in. He opened up to me and gave me the time of day before I bought a couple animals from him years ago. And so like I knew who he was, and I had conversed with him before I was able to acquire animals from him. And honestly, like that's kind of taboo today, is to like, consume a breeder's time without acquiring from them. Like, let's be real. Most folks would prefer, like, if you're the guy hitting them up for questions, it's probably the best that you purchase from them. But that's not a steadfast rule. There's nothing wrong with hitting up people just to get like different varieties of answers. There's nothing wrong with that. Don't get me wrong. But he's never steered me wrong. He's always just been like a solid dude. And I've got a lot of animals from him. And I just think his time within the reptile hobby and shows in Central California and Southern California and importing and everything, he's relevant. He will be relevant for a long time and relatable as well.
Yeah,
and
definitely. 100%.
A lot of people who are involved in the West Coast side of things definitely know who he is. People who pay attention to reptile content on YouTube should probably know who he is, and he's just a solid guy all around. Like, he's never been anything but that. And so he really deserves his, retirement he's working towards, and just doing all the good stuff he does. And I cherish all the animals I have from him. So,
and you would think the amount of attention and the amount of things he's put out there, you would think someone would look at that and say like, hey, that's actually viable, and that's something that he's going the extra mile and he's being rewarded for it. So you think that more people would take his precedent and import absolutely. Species that way. But
and there certainly are folks who do. Dan has videos out there where he like tells people, like, if you're interested in doing what I'm doing, it's as simple as applying for certain permits, speaking with the local government,
which is very difficult.
It is difficult.
Easy,
it is difficult. And there is no learning curve. So you just, like, if that's something you want to do and you're passionate about, like, importing and exporting and fulfilling some of those quotas that do exist and being like a responsible cog in that wheel, you can make a difference. You can keep things sustainable. You can do things in a responsible way, and you can learn a lot along the way. So it just takes a lot of paperwork, a lot of kind of dealing with challenges and unforeseen circumstances and variables, and just waiting a lot for people to literally just send you back a correspondence on paper sort of thing, which can be certainly very
it's those kinds of things that, like, people our age, I know for me in particular, I'm so bad at, like, mailing shit out and stuff like that. Like, I do that so little that it's like, unless it's like snakes.
And then think about the folks who are doing it for a living, and they've got like counties to respond to.
Ugh.
It's just tough. Things take time. It is what it is, So that's where the networking comes into play. And anytime I would see Dan at a show, I actually made it a point to like introduce myself when it was a low traffic time at his booth and he was in the middle of something, and I could just really like occupy 30 seconds of his time without really taking away from what he's trying to do.
Yeah, like you need to, in that situation, it's like you always need to kind of not talk enough to be annoying, but also talk enough to get the point across that more than like just a random Joe, and you want to like actually talk fun stuff with him. Like, I don't know if that makes any sense. Like, I feel like that goes for a lot of vendors. I mean, that's where I try to like not be overbearing, but then again, like I want to talk to you, but I want to show you that I'm not just a, I don't know, random person that wants to talk about how to keep my whatever.
Yeah, it all makes sense. I mean, we're all, reptile keepers at the end of the day. So as long as you just approach people like you're a normal dude, it's all good.
One more.
Asked me why I was. God. I don't like you. You know that?
Whatever do you mean?
So
it's terrible. How dare you say that?
For people that don't know, I was just going wee wee.
And my wife Wait, I didn't mean to say it like that.
Whoa! Now. So rewind.
Back to the podcast.
Yeah, we're rewinding again.
The podcast and yeah. Dan is a legit dude, man. So I first met Dan. I know Dan wouldn't remember. I want to say I met Dan probably at the first Pomona show I ever went to, which was
that when he was back with still Ophiological Services?
No, he had just gone to DM Exotics. So I think he went to DM Exotics the first time in San Diego at the San Diego Super Show. I think that was his first show. Mm-hmm. Shit, man, if I remember, that was probably in the 90s. I went to a San Diego Super Show with my dad. But I went to another Anaheim Pomona show. I can't remember. It wasn't at the major Anaheim place anyway. But I remember seeing some of the stuff on his table that was just, you're not going to find it at any other table. You're not. And not as well established as he has it. And that's the bottom line. When it comes down to somebody that imports animals, it's not, you need to have several ways of categorizing your importers. You have your importers, you have your flippers, and you have people that establish your animals and then prepare them for keeping. And then that's where Dan falls in.
Which I feel like is such a small subset of people. If there's anyone else.
You can count them on one hand. You can count them on one hand.
And it's like you need those guys so that we can get that fresh blood in, and you have reliable animals, and just not even just fresh blood, but new species or species that haven't been imported in a while.
When he tells you that he has something available, and he tells you what the species is, he's one of the very, very few people on this planet that can, with certainty, feel or communicate to you exactly what it is that he has and that it's ready for you to keep. Because if he's not comfortable with keeping it, he's not going to let you take it unless he knows who you are as a keeper. And even then, I think that he would be reluctant to sell you an animal unless he knows for absolute certainty that that animal is going to succeed with you. I think that says a lot to him as a keeper and as an importer. So I personally, I think when it comes time to when I'm able to, and when he gets to the point of retire, I can't tell you how proud I am of where he's at as just a person. He's worked so hard in his life, his 9-to-5, quote unquote 9-to-5, to get to the point to where he's at, to be able to get to the point to retire in the place that he loves with the woman that he loves. Do you know how commendable that is? I mean, that's life, man. That is just pure passion.
They do a pretty cool thing. That's pretty awesome for sure.
I want to be able to call him up and be like, I'm ready to do a herb trip.
You just need the money for a flight. Make sure your passport's ready to go. Yep. And
I want to fund his retirement. I want to help fund his retirement. Let's put it that way. When it comes to that time. Dude.
Yeah, Dan's a good dude.
So Dan has been doing such an amazing thing for this hobby that I think a lot of people don't. A lot of people do know what he does, but I think a lot of other keepers.
But most people don't even understand it to the full extent of what he's doing, and to where, the 95% of people aren't going to know if they see 10 tables, the difference between someone who has captive bred animals and imported, let alone his,
that every time I've seen him, I go up to a table and he is so inundated with people. That in and of itself right there is so inspirational as a keeper, to just stand back and be able to watch him communicate with his customers, to see his wife right next to him supporting him. I think that is one of the most amazing things right there in life, besides just step aside from the reptile hobby, to have the love of your life right next to you, doing the passion, doing the thing that you love, standing right next to you. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter about the legacy that you leave, having that legacy right beside you. I think that's one of the most beautiful things in life right there. Anyway.
Thought Riley was going to say something. Sorry for not saying anything.
Andy deserves the
we let his statements breathe when they
no, he really you're dead on. He does deserve that. Like he's got a lot to offer, and he's kind of like personally taken a back seat.
You know how excited I am to be able to just watch Dan herp and me walk? It's gonna happen. I'm saving up for my own retirement at some point. At some point when he's retired and he's in Indonesia in his badass house. For anybody that hasn't seen DM Exotics YouTube, do yourself a favor.
Get out from under a rock.
Get out from under a rock. Go check out his freaking YouTube channel and go watch what he's doing.
Santa's coming?
Oh, I'm gonna book a trip.
I know him.
I'm gonna book a trip. I'm telling you, I'm gonna book a trip, and I'm just gonna learn. I want to learn, man. I want to learn from somebody that's been out there. I've been stuck behind a cubicle for most of my freaking adult life. I want to learn from somebody that's been out there in the field and see.
Yeah, you're gonna get Giardia and shit your pants, and
I don't care.
See,
dude. Hey, hold on, whoa.
It's worth it.
I have a stomach like a freaking bull right now. I'm good to go.
I just think it will be Riley? We all want to go to, I think we all want to go. Anyone who likes pythons wants to go to Indonesia or
Riley,
Australia.
Joe, Melissa, Elizabeth, Rachel, we're going to Indonesia.
Ooh, we could do that.
Let's do it.
Rachel would not come.
No.
Melissa might not come too, so.
Rachel, station. We're going to make this happen.
She would not come. She would not go.
That's okay. She can stay at the resort.
On what account? The fact that she doesn't like nature, or
what resort?
No, not like
living out of a fucking car in Australia. What resort?
But does she not like being outside?
I'm Indonesia.
No, she does.
I'm talking Indonesia.
Same damn thing.
Indonesia resort. Massages.
Dude, she wouldn't.
Drinks. She can hang out with Elizabeth. Elizabeth's not going to want to go herping. She loves reptiles, but she's going to be like, you're going to go get wet feet in the mud? Fuck it. You can go.
Melissa would not go for a second either.
Okay. So all three ladies can stay at the spa, and we go herp with Dan.
We should just go.
Or we can just go herp with Dan.
For a couple of white guys, you guys are stupid. Okay. Okay. I don't know. I just felt like getting racist.
White guys aren't intellectually superior, but I mean, but you said it, which is pretty racist.
So technically,
you
said it
anti-racist
that way. No, you said it
up there, huh?
That way.
Yahweh.
That guy.
I don't know.
Exactly. No, I think we just. Would that be your number one place that you would want to go?
Indo? Bridge.
Ooh. Oh, that's a great question. Where's our number one herping place to go? Oh, this is okay. So we're ready. We're at 308. We're about to go to 408. Okay. I'm getting paid either way.
I'm done, though.
Oh man, Joe's done. I'm barely getting started.
Riley is literally done. I think Riley's been done for like 2 hours.
Where's your number one place to go, Herb? That's a great question, Joe. Shit, you should have.
Well, fuck. I'll answer in the time that Riley can figure it out.
All of Australia.
Okay.
Done.
No.
But that's so many trips.
Yep.
Pick one place in Australia.
How many microclimates are in Australia?
Darwin.
Ooh.
Northern Territory. And no, Cape York.
That'd be a dope ass trip.
I want to go to WA.
Oh.
I want to go to the Pilbara. Try to find out with pythons.
Pilbara.
I am
Pilbara.
Sorry, bro.
Amazon.
Pilbara. You damn right, bro.
I'm actually probably in the Peruvian Amazon rainforest looking for Amazon basin emerald tree boas.
Ooh.
Let's go catch some.
Ooh, that's actually a really good one.
Yeah. That's so before kids, my goal was at 30 years old to be definitely trenching through the Amazon rainforest multiple times. And you know what? I'm glad I had kids prior to then, because having children has changed my perspective on life tenfold in a positive way. And a lot of times we try to, throw bullshit on that. And I think children have been the most beneficial thing for me personally as a person, and getting married, etc. But it's going to happen for me at some point, getting into the Amazon. So yeah,
that's one of those. It seems like the guys that are into that have worked with reptiles their whole life, and they get out of it, and they have a smaller collection now, and they have like the diamond, the like holy grail. They either have like a Bolin's or an Amazon, or like that's what everyone's like working for. I feel
my diamond is in Amazon basin, 100% true locality Peruvian Amazon basin. High white.
Riley.
I mean,
it's a beautiful animal. Can't argue that.
But it's only going to happen when I know for 100% that I've got the room for it and the enclosure for it, because it's going to be 100% bioactive. It's going to be a self-sustaining system. When it happens, I don't mind spending the thousands of dollars that it's going to take to buy that animal, but it's going to be because I've got an enclosure that's worth thousands of dollars as well.
Yeah, something that's worthy of that animal, and you can display it in a way that is going to just enhance your experience. It's
displayed in my master suite for my wife and I to enjoy. It does. I don't care if anybody else ever sees it, ever. I don't care. If I can enjoy it, I'm good. I'm good with that. Yeah. But it's got to be ready. That's the primary animal that I've yet to keep in my I don't even know the words. I don't have vocabulary like Riley. But for the many years that I've kept animals, I've yet to keep an Amazon basin emerald tree boa or any emerald tree boa. But when that day comes, I've got a few people that I'm going to be buying from, and it's going to be a locality animal with parentheses, with an S in the middle of those parentheses, and it's going to be in a bioactive, probably a paludarium, beautiful, display enclosure for sure, no doubt about it. Riley's looking off to his left or right, calling bullshit, but I'm gonna tell you right now, it's gonna happen.
Riley, do you have a holy grail? What are you pointing at?
Yeah, he's pointing at something. So apparently he has his holy grail, which I'm kind of pissed because I don't know about it.
This dude just needs to shut up. He's like crinkling paper and making a whole bunch of commotion. He just needs to like breed his lady and like keep it peaceful and move on.
Sometimes there's a little bit of enticing that's required in order for that to happen, Riley. You know what though? I would
He's
understand for
been
somebody
walking-
that's
he's
not
been
married.
walking up. Anyway, he's been
Joe-
locking up. He just
Joe's
needs
like,
to shut it.
oh my god,
Holy Grail.
Holy
huh?
Grail.
So honestly, I think for me,
If you say Bolins, you're wrong.
Oh shit!
it's not Bolins.
It's
It's
just-
actually not Bolins. If I could really have everything sort of like dial in my favor and have the resources ready to just like really focus on one thing, it would be Apodora papuana
Ooh.
for sure.
Yeah,
100%.
gorgeous species too.
They're like
Yeah.
Australian olives, but
Pure.
smarter than retics. Resilient like various different boas, but
they eat each other.
Oh,
It's
shit.
increased fun.
Yeah,
Increased fun. You know what though? But you're on with Jacob on that one too, right? My holy grail
Yes,
is Sansinia, simply serpents.
Sanzinia is really nice. I worked with them. They're badass. They're cool snakes.
Mandarins or greens?
Greens.
Do you have a preference, Riley?
Ooh,
Greens?
Yeah, green is amazing.
yeah.
There were nothing wrong with
Sansinia.
mandarins. The one thing with mandarins is they look better as babies as they do as adults. The adults are cool, but they take on this like sort of gray backdrop color. They still have the same like yellow highlights and pattern and everything, but it's a different color. Whereas the greens, depending on their lineage, they're going to be born red and yellow, and they will train sort of go through that ontogenetic color change into green, and that green can vary from like a nice emerald green to like an aqua green. So the individual I worked with for the longest time was like this aqua bluish green, and he was just amazing, and I'd never seen anything like him.
You're such a nerd.
Yes, proud.
You're a fucking nerd, dude.
Yeah. Fuck yeah.
Hey, say that word to me again, because it gets me off a little bit. Onto what?
Puck.
Onto
F-U-K. Puck.
ontogenetic
pocket.
color change. This guy
Ontogenetic color change.
talking all sexy and shit with his monotone. Oh, ontogenetic color change.
How were those Mad Hogs looking, by the way? Forgot to ask you.
Man.
Honestly, at this point, yeah, I think they're breeding again.
Are they cohabiting year round?
Yeah.
You know what's crazy is how nutty it was to see him go through the psychological changes of like, I'm gonna sell them because I'm fucking tired of them, and then holy shit, they're breeding. Oh, I've got eggs. Oh, they're hatching.
Dude, I found the female looking thick the day before I found eggs. Literally the day before.
People in this hobby have no idea how incredible that clutch was, though. That's what's nuts. They're so worried about the latest freaking ball python freaking morph that he bred this species. Whatever. I'm about to get on a freaking soapbox. I'm about to piss off a whole
No, go. I mean, you're not really.
Throw
not
them
really
in
our
a box. Throw them in a box and ignore them.
I'm just
That's what
saying,
they
dude.
need.
No, you did a freaking incredible thing. Okay, sorry.
Put them in a box, ignore them, clean up their poop, make sure they have fresh water, throw food at them once in a while. They're good.
Somebody was asking a question earlier about like 12 hours ago about about Mad Hogs. Don't make that face, Riley. I don't have a life. So
you
I've got
put them together. Yeah, house
put them together, leave them alone, breed them. Get some eggs.
check
hatch
them a couple times a week because they do have fast metabolisms like a lot of other colubrids. But
he tries to make it seem like it's like no big deal. Like, oh, whatever. Oh, I just bred some mad hogs.
I don't even keep notes on these things. I forgot to check them.
But you know, now it's like you have to be the mad hog guy now. You got to keep them and keep on breeding them, right? You're going to.
He doesn't want to keep them.
I don't care what they do.
This guy. I swear.
That's fair.
Up there.
That's fair. I've seen them, and like, it's not a snake I would want to work with 100%.
They suck.
I understand.
Their shit smells like
dude,
seriously,
they're terrible.
It's horrible. Like just reading the messages from him about their shit alone. Oh, what was that, Joe?
That was an accident, but it actually makes sense in context.
Dude,
yes,
those things
agree.
like flip over their water dish if it doesn't have like a ceramic bowl.
Good evening.
They're terrible.
Gotta love carpet pythons at 1028. Well, it's the good thing you're only about 12 hours
128.
1028. 1028 my time.
Ooh.
So, Joe, your time, it's really doesn't matter.
Great.
Because the West Coast people, that's
the
our
run
time.
or the world runs on West Coast time.
Yeah.
Quite the opposite.
Yes.
But
He's drinking water, Riley.
isn't this like the girliest water bottle ever? It's Melissa's. It's nice though. It's more functional than mine.
Sustainable. I support that.
I am not gonna give any.
You got to like suck on it like a fucking baby and shit, but it's okay. Like a bottle.
Really?
No one. Someone help me out here.
So there was this one time. Anyway.
Do I have to actually put this out?
No. This could be
show
between us three, and I would be cool with it, 100%. And whoever else decided to stay on the chat for this entire time,
I'm 100% putting it out, but it's not our best. Not our best showing. If someone made it this far in the audio, like seriously, you guys are fucking
team.
cool. You're definitely on the team.
ReptileRoomPodcast.com. Reptile Room Podcast on Instagram and Facebook. Joe's probably going to take about maybe 2 or 3 days to recover from being
harassed
and shit on. Melissa's going to be thankful though. So
yes, very thankful.
Melissa is the reason why your podcast will continue from this point on.
Yeah. See, the thing is that where Riley and I failed was the fact that it's Riley and I, male and male. Who knows?
Yeah.
Hey!
That's what you're talking about.
That's
no crossing swords.
That's me.
Oh.
No, we're gonna talk reptiles, not swords.
Oh.
Yeah.
But you're man on man, mano y mano, reptile talk. Just two guys. Right? Get it on. Talking about reptiles.
I'm not even going to take it beyond that. I was going to say, unless somebody jumps on and we get a guest involved in the show, but that would just not sound
Which
good.
is going to be Dan, right?
So we do
You said it. You said it.
On
or
having
I think Joe is still trying to figure out how the hell he's going to get to bed.
Well, the thing is, you started the outro, and then you completely abandoned it.
All he has to do is hit hang up. Here's the thing.
It's on him, folks.
Everybody, it's on you, Andy.
It's on all of you.
It's on Joe. It's on me. Reptile Room Podcast, From the Ground Up Podcast. Look up Joe and Melissa on From the Ground Up. They have literally made.
You guys have been on for a while.
Y'all have been doing it really well, but you've really been killing
podcast
it.
Years.
Seriously, think about it.
But in the corn steak market, you guys have been doing fantastic work. It's been amazing to watch from the outside perspective. It really has. It's cool. It's cool to see that whole niche like grow again and get the respect it deserves.
I guess it's the same thing with I don't know. I like corn snakes are great. They're my favorite snake to work with, right?
They're awesome.
But
They're amazing.
But no one cares about any of the other shit I breed. And I want to talk about it, and no one ever asks me about it, ever. So it's like,
oh, hold up.
It doesn't matter.
Up. No,
Andy knows where this is going.
Okay. You just hit on this at 3:24 and 28 seconds.
Oh, here we go.
They're coming on. On.
Shit. Okay. You got Floridana for the first time.
Well, that's the easiest one to breed, but
hey, I'm leading up into my first breeding season though. Okay. So you had a chance to get to it 2019, right?
Yeah.
Super exciting. But you do also no, hold up. So you got corn snakes also, but you also have had some heartache with your palmetto pairing.
Yes.
Okay. So I think that that's something important for everybody that's listening, that's doing pairings, that's maybe either has been successful or has not been successful, is you're going to get heartache no matter how successful you are with the pairings that you've got. Joe,
dude,
you and Melissa have been successful with the pairings that you've had in the past, and you've also had heartache. That is such an amazing learning experience for someone. As long as I've been keeping, I've never bred corns from the point of breeding them or keeping them from a baby to the point of breeding them, or from, I'm going to consider myself a cheater, picking up some adult Floridana this year, breeding them in 2020. You guys did it. That's awesome stuff, man. I'm super excited about that.
Yeah, we also, yeah, it's like half the time it's great, and the other half we got like shit on constantly.
That's
it was
the
like
things that new keepers need to learn about.
Dude, you honestly, man, and like especially like if you talk to me around like October, when like when the dust settles and like you figure out who's gonna eat, who's not gonna eat, and I have to either watch snakes die or feed them off to king snakes, or just decide that this snake isn't going to thrive.
Yeah.
I think that people don't realize that when you get to a certain amount of snakes, you have a good amount of snakes that are going to meet their demise in one way or the other under your care.
Yeah.
And dude, it fucking sucks.
That's hard.
It doesn't, honestly, for me, it almost doesn't surpass the highs of doing all of this. To be honest, like Melissa helps me a lot by keeping me like doing this, to be honest, when I'm in that space, as far as I'm just ready to be like, let's at least do less. So maybe it can just feel less fucking terrible. Because when things go wrong, it goes wrong on a bigger scale.
You're right.
Like it doesn't go wrong, you know, like half of our clutches, dude, were stillborn. Right. And that's like we hatched like 175 babies. So what could have happened, you know, was that it was probably over 100 babies that we've had stillborn this year. It's like, what the fuck is going on?
What happened, or what could you have done better? Or I was nowhere near that number, man. But
and the last 2 years were 100%
no matter what
hatch rate. But we moved to PA this year.
But you just moved.
Yeah. But everything was fertile. I just didn't know the room. I think it was I fucked up.
There you go. Right there.
And it takes an adjustment to know your room. So.
Well, Owen had 60, 70 slugs this season.
Also, keep in mind that colubrid breeders across the Northeast and the Midwest, and most of the people I've talked to, had a shit year.
It wasn't just colubrids. It was even a lot of Morelia guys that had a really shitty year in 2019, 2018 even.
And I see those waves that are constantly matching up. Like I see guys having bad years, and then, you know, the Morelia people will have a bad year. These people will have a bad year, and it just seems like things sync up a lot. It's crazy.
Yeah, for sure.
So there's certain things that we think that we're controlling that clearly
we're not.
Sure.
There's something else out there, right?
Yeah. No, definitely, for sure. I think we can definitely do better. I think sharing data, kind of going back to about 2 weeks ago in this podcast, when Riley was talking about data. I think collectively talking about data, I'm a data guy myself. I mean, I have a degree in basically data management, and finding ways for us as keepers to share data together, whether it be whatever genus, it doesn't matter, whatever species it doesn't matter. There is very simple tools for us to be able to get connected together. What happened? What was the parameters of your room? This kind of ties back to the Reptile Room podcast for me and Riley. One of the biggest segments or series that we're going to be pulling together is on the reptile room. What does it take to create a successful reptile room for your species of choice? Is going to be that in and of itself. How are you going to prepare that room for that one species that you're focused on? If you have a room that has had a fluctuation, 2016 to 2017 for me was a successful year. 2017 to 2019, I moved into a new home. I lost animals that meant a lot to me. I had animals that didn't want to breed for me. It was a huge change, and it was literally a less than 10-mile change in terms of location, but it was a huge change in temperature, relative humidity. Those are the kind of things that Riley and I want to bring into the reptile hobby, to talk to basic keepers, advanced keepers, collectively bring that together to say, hey, look, these minor changes mean a huge thing to a biological creature like a snake, that is going to, a female in particular, say, this is just isn't going to work for me. We're not going to breed this year. So coming back to the care, coming back to the basics, coming back to the very little minor changes that we need to make in our rooms. What do we need to do? You and Melissa had a major change in your life, and you guys experienced a major I mean, you guys experienced a decrease in your production.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish it felt that. Yeah. Yeah.
It was a major change in the way that you guys, where you were keeping and how you were keeping.
Mm-hmm.
And it was relation in regard to where you guys moved. So,
and I think it's something to where it was also, I kind of let my guard down a bit, like, oh, I got this. No need to worry that much. I mean, you know, what could go wrong? But with a new room, so many things. Because honestly, most of the times, if your room's dialed in, you get to that point where, like that, what Bill Hughes calls like benign neglect, meaning that, especially for eggs, just leave those neglect those as much as you can. Don't mess with them at all. You know, like that's the best way to go about it. If you can, you got to be observant to a certain point, but so that's what I always try to go by. Maybe I went a little bit too hard this year because I didn't know just the adjustment, because I came from a newly built house in Dallas, you know, a place with a closet, and it was insulated and it was all perfect. And now I'm here in like an early 20th century row house in Philly, which has like floorboards with holes in it and like free flowing air every which way. It doesn't hold temperature very well. It fluctuates a lot just because it's old, you know, just old construction. Yeah. So it's been super, super unreliable. And just in comparison to Dallas is just it's like swimming against the current in Dallas, I felt like I was on the lazy river, you know?
Definitely.
So you gotta, I think people at home who are just getting into keeping or breeding, honestly, man, that your location matters. It
Absolutely.
just really does.
I think you got to take into consideration everything that has to do with your reptile room, or where that one single, if you're only keeping one species. I think Riley and I touched on it on episode 1 and episode 2 of our podcast. It doesn't matter whether you're keeping a large number of species or one single species in a large number. It doesn't matter where you're keeping them. You have to take into consideration what their standards of living are. Are you meeting it or are you not? It's all right. If you're not, what are you doing to fix it?
Yeah, because it's
I think
not
that's really what it comes down to at the end of it.
Yeah, because unfortunately,
it's not that easy to answer that.
Fortunately or unfortunately, like there is no end game to this. There is no end to it. We're just trying to perfect something that will probably never be perfected, and we will constantly have to go through these iterations of what did I do wrong? What is going on here? And keep on just trying to improve. And it's something that's kind of like daunting, especially because of the, like what you mentioned earlier, like genetic diversity is going down. And certain morphs have problems, or, you know, different things that are going on throughout the hobby, and that people are breeding, you know, for phenotype more so than for health. And we're just seeing the kind of the downfall of that. I don't want to say downfall because nothing's terrible, but it's something that I've talked about the last couple of times on the podcast. But I'm also just trying to fill time because Riley and Andy are busy. But it's always nice to talk to people and know that, you know, you're not alone as far as struggles in keeping or breeding or all of that stuff, because we've all fudged up, haven't we, Riley?
Oh, I do it on the regular, sort of. Not really, but like there's all sorts of learning curves.
And I think the only difference between someone who quits and doesn't is that they just don't let it stop them, as far as if something goes wrong, they want to improve it. You know, they don't want to just stop.
Yeah, and that's how you sort of improve the rhythm of your room, you know, especially if you move into a new place, you sort of figure out how the climate works in all the corners and nooks and crannies and all that, and you figure it out based on the enclosures you have and the species you're keeping, this and that. So yeah, there's a lot of like learning curves to it, but you just have to spend time in there, figure it out, you know?
Yeah. So I don't know where Andy is, but I'm going to do an actual intro or outro when he gets back. Hopefully it's not the intro. We'd be in trouble.
Yeah, that'd be funny though. Nah, he's probably just running to the banyo. Dude, I thought I was like hearing my whole place shake and an earthquake, and then my door opened, and I realized like Rachel was even hearing the same thing. I'm like, what the hell is going on? The Airbnb above us, it's just ridiculous right now.
Wait, so they rent out the place above you as an Airbnb?
Yeah, it's been there for months.
And terrible. People are just can come there and party or do whatever the hell.
Yeah, we've made enough noise where they only rent to people who are there for more than a month. The problem is the people who have been there for the last couple months are like hands down the worst people they've had in there thus far. So it's awesome.
It's a good thing I wasn't outside taking a pee.
Hey, Andy.
What?
You wanna give people kind of the rundown on where they can find the podcast?
Yeah,
I think we've done this 3 times, but
no, but like he can send us out. He can give us the platforms, the website. He can do all that. We'll take it.
Everyone, be quiet.
Let
him get through it, and then I'll do my part after, and then we can end it.
Okay, so first and foremost, seriously, who the hell have you had on for 3 hours and 30?
You've never met Cody Bartolini, okay? We have gone 4, my friend. We have gone for.
Okay. Well, I apologize, Joe. I'm so sorry, but
You don't. He's the king, man.
Okay.
You don't even know.
So for the fourth time, on Instagram and Facebook, Reptile Room Podcast is what you need to type in, and you will find us. And reptileroompodcast.com is the primary website that we are focused on getting loaded. I'm hoping that tomorrow, I'm not sure, Joe, when you're going to get this uploaded. It's live now, so I guess.
I may edit it right now and put it up.
Okay, that's fine. So we are waiting for some DNS servers to get activated in order for us to be able to point it to reptileroompodcast.com. At the moment, reptileroompodcast/simplecast.com is the primary website. But we're going to get that figured out. So I hope everybody's had a good time. I've had a good time. Joe, I appreciate your time. I know you've got a lot of work to do, man. And the fact that we've spent this amount of time together online, just bullshitting and just having a good time, talking about all kinds of miscellaneous stuff, people in the chat, I think that says a lot about your community. And I think that says a lot about the dedication that you've done for our hobby. So I want to commend you and your followers.
Thanks, man.
Don't forget Melissa.
The fact that they care to just stay on and do this with us. That's awesome. So thank you to everybody else that's been live. I know it's gone quite a while long, but we've had a great time. So Joe, thank you so much for your time, man. It's been great to just allow us the opportunity to promote our new show. Me and Riley, we shoot the shit all the time, offline and online and on our recordings. We're going to geek out. That's our goal. We're going to geek out.
Yeah, dude. Seriously.
Or without things that potentially may affect our mental capability. Yes.
I won't read too deeply into that. But yeah, to have all these people here that are usually at the podcast or listening to the podcast from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. But this has gone from, and most of them are in East Coast or Central time zone,
right?
And yeah, so they've been on from 10 p.m. to almost 2 in the morning, dude.
Bro, that's your crew, man.
It's crazy.
That's commendable. And we're just talking reptiles.
And that's just
amazing of a community is that. That in and of itself, folks, that is exactly what Riley and I at the end of the day, that's all we want to do is just connect with folks to just shoot the shit about reptiles, talk about reptiles. What's going good? What's going bad? You know?
Absolutely.
So, thank you, man. I appreciate the time. You've given us what? Almost 4 hours.
Dude, what do you mean? We just had fun for 4 hours. All right.
Cheers.
So I said I was going to do.
Cheers to you and cheers to your crew.
Riley's just not even joining in with us anymore.
I had 6 beers. I have none left.
That's fair.
More than that.
I had 0. Sorry, guys, for disappointing. Dude, this would have been a lot of fun if I had been drinking as much.
It's already a lot of fun, man. It's all good. Don't worry about it. You had work to do. It's a blast. Don't worry about it.
But you can check us out at portcitypythons.com. Port City Pythons on Instagram. Port City I fucked it up. Port City Pet.
You're on
Port City Pet YouTube channel because there's new things in the outro, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So check out the new Port City Pet YouTube channel. The 10 people that listen to this point can go subscribe, and that would be excellent. I mean, we're just trying to get it up to the point where we can like create a thumbnail or do the basic functions on Instagram or on YouTube. That would be great. So if you guys could check that out, I would really, really appreciate it. Other than that, thank you guys so much for listening. Have happy holidays. It is now Christmas Eve. I hope I have this out on Christmas Eve. And
Merry Christmas,
you guys can enjoy your break and listen to some reptile podcasts. Thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you to Andy and Riley.
No, thank you, man. Thank you.
Happy
Thank
holidays,
you to everybody
everyone.
online. Thank you to everybody. Merry
Yeah.
Christmas.
Later,
sure.
Gators.
Later, guys.
America, Gators.